This week on the show, we're talking about Casino Royale.
2006, Mads Mikkelsen, my boy, Daniel Craig.
No. Not that one.
I don't want to see an ordinary film. I want to see something extraordinary.
Your sacrifice completes my sanctuary of 1,000 testicles.
You ever feel as if your mind had started to erode?
Welcome to 1000 Wives of Weird, the podcast that's a discussion of weird movies. I'm Billy Martell, and with me as always is...
Brad Hefner.
And today, you heard it right. We're talking about Casino Royale, but not that one. For the month of March?
Yes.
Yes, that's what time it is. For the month of March, we're doing a special themed month, hopefully the first of many that we want to do.
I've wanted to do theme months for a while.
Yeah.
Talked about it a bit. This is the one we've talked about the most.
Right. We had the most ideas for this one, and it's literally called
No, Not That One.
No, Not That One month. And this is essentially our way of tricking people into clicking on our show more.
Yes.
Let's be upfront with it. We're going to talk about some movies that we've both come across that were already movies that we wanted to talk about for the show.
Yes.
But just happen to have titles that conspicuously make them very similar to movies that most people have heard of.
Yes.
In this case, this is probably the closest connection between the two movies.
Yes.
Because both of them are literally based on the same source material.
The Bible.
The Bible, as written by Sir Alexander Dumas. But
What?
It's an At World's End reference.
Oh, okay.
So we're talking about Casino Royale.
The 1967 Casino Royale.
1967 Casino Royale. Casino Royale is a book written by Ian Fleming that was adapted 3 times.
Really?
Once as an episode of an anthology series, Climax, on NBC, starring the only American Bond, Barry Bostwick, I believe. Oh,
Barry Bostwick?
Sorry, Barry Nelson. I got my Barrys mixed up. And actually Peter Lorre as Le Chiffre.
Oh.
And then, of course, as most people know, it was adapted in 2006 with Daniel Craig as James Bond and Brad's favorite, Mads Mikkelsen, as Le Chiffre. But today, we are talking about the, 1967?
1967.
The 1967 version of Casino Royale, starring everyone under the sun as James Bond, and Orson Welles as Le Chiffre. What a movie.
Yeah, I don't even know how to succinctly sum this up.
I wrote down a plot description because I knew I wouldn't be able to think of one in a moment. Casino Royale is the story of the original James Bond, not the lame one you've seen in those other movies. This one's the real one. Coming out of retirement and taking down the evil organization SMERSH, by recruiting a bunch of other MI6 agents and giving them all his name, and then sending them on a variety of missions to save the day once more for Queen and Country.
Yes.
I think that's the best way to describe it.
We should also highlight this as a comedy. This is a parody.
This is famous. There are many, many Bond spoofs over the years, some more famous and more successful than others. This one is the first one.
Yes.
This is the very first time that anyone ever set out to spoof James Bond. And unlike many others, like the Austin Powers movies, they were able to use the actual Bond name because when Ian Fleming was just trying to get the Bond franchise to work, he basically sold the film rights to anyone and everyone who came along.
Yeah.
One of those people who bought the rights ended up creating one of the most successful and iconic action franchises of all time. And then some of those other people who also owned the rights, air quotes, came along and were like, well, I guess we can also make our own Bond movies. And that caused all sorts of problems. But one of those problems was they had the rights to Casino Royale and they made this movie out of it.
Yes.
Charles K. Feldman was the guy.
Who did what?
Who had the rights and made this.
Okay.
He's the producer. Well, he was actually a talent agent, and the guy who actually bought the rights, died, left the rights to Charles K. Feldman, and he made this movie. Again, this movie led me down so many rabbit holes, and we don't have time to talk about all of them.
No, there's a lot of backstory to this.
There's so much. So I will say right off the bat, this movie is a trip. This movie's an absolute trip.
It is.
And as we always say that it's better to watch a movie without spoilers, this movie in particular, I'm not sure if that's true for this movie, just because like it's such a trip.
Yeah.
It's so weird, but at the same time, we do want to give our thoughts about the movie up front before we get into the spoilers. So, Brad, what? I guess I don't even know if I want to ask if you recommend this movie. Just what? What is going on?
I have a fairly neutral feeling towards this movie. Like, I don't... If you want to watch this movie, if you're like, Casino Royale, the 1967 one.
Sure.
I'm curious. Go ahead and watch it. I did not particularly enjoy it.
Right.
I didn't find it very funny.
Yeah.
It is sometimes painfully slow, but at the same time, it's so insane that I kind of didn't mind at times.
There's nothing else like it.
No.
I've never experienced this before in my life, which makes it perfect for the show.
Absolutely.
It's not a movie that I think either of us liked.
No. If you were to say, if I were to come over one day and you were to say, hey, let's rewatch Casino Royale, I would probably say, let's not.
Sure, yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, right, we don't like that movie.
That's probably exactly what I would say.
What about you?
So, I am a huge James Bond fan.
And I am not. Let's point that out.
Let's point that out right off the bat. I do sometimes feel a little bit of shame about being a James Bond fan, as being someone who tries to be more woke, like a little bit more sensitive about different people and the way that they live their lives. And James Bond is a very old world, very sort of British nationalism, misogynistic, toxic figure.
Yeah.
But I did grow up with those movies. They hold a very important place in my heart. And then after I watched this movie, I went and I watched the new film that came out recently, No Time to Die, and I actually cried. The James Bond movies mean a lot to me. So on that level, I am happy that I saw this movie.
Yeah.
I would recommend it to people to whom James Bond has that kind of connection with. If you want to be a completionist, this is an interesting artifact. It's kind of like if you're a huge Marvel fan and you seek out those old 1970s TV pilots, like the Doctor Strange TV pilot or the Red Brown Captain America movies. You probably won't like the Red Brown Captain America movies, but hey, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Without going into spoilers, I'll just say the movie was directed by 6 people.
This is almost an anthology film.
Almost. In fact, it would have been better if it was.
Yes, it has several different plot lines, several different directors, several different writers.
Several different stars.
Yes.
Many people were told during the making of the movie that they were the star of the film, and then realized later on that they weren't. The closest thing that I can compare to the process of watching this movie is, if you've seen Pocket Ninjas...
I never have.
Pocket Ninjas is an experience where it appears that they hired an editor who did the entire editing job with the audio off and his eyes closed.
Okay.
Like, the movie is edited in an almost random fashion where you can tell that certain scenes connect, but those scenes are at different parts of the movie. If you were to take Pocket Ninjas and then throw all of the money in the world at it, hire all of the most popular and incredible actors, writers, musicians, directors of the time that you live in, and have them all working on the movie, but it's still Pocket Ninjas? That's what this movie is.
Yeah.
The amount of talent involved in this film is stacked.
Yes.
The cast, the crew, the amount of money. This movie has been compared to Cleopatra in terms of how much money was actually spent on it. The difference between this and Cleopatra is this made money at the box office.
Yeah.
Cleopatra was famously did not make enough to justify the expense. Casino Royale absolutely did. That's how big Bond mania was in the 60s. It didn't matter. Now, the actual Bond movie that came out next after this movie, You Only Live Twice, suddenly made a lot less money than the previous Bond movie, and that's all I'll say about that. But
I want to, before we move on to our in-depth discussion, I want to give a shout out to our friend Susan.
Yes, hello, Susan.
Who might listen to this episode.
Sure.
And is a very big fan of this movie.
Right.
So I would like to provide her dissenting opinion.
Go right ahead.
David Niven is her favorite Bond.
I understand.
She loves the music.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we didn't talk a whole lot about it, but she loves this film.
That's great.
So it is,
and that's fine.
That is fine. This is a movie that works very well for some people.
Yeah. I'll be honest. Like, this movie is so uneven. There were definitely bits where I laughed.
Oh yeah,
I agree.
I didn't laugh a lot.
No, but I did laugh, and I agree with you, Susan. That Susan, who was in this room, being very quiet.
Yes.
Susan, that David Niven is iconic, always, and honestly, even in this movie, with the material that he's given, he's great.
Yeah,
like he's a good actor, and he's great at doing the David Niven thing, which is exactly what he's called upon to do in this film. And I will also say that, Susan, you're in the right, because David Niven, one of Ian Fleming's favorite Bonds.
Really?
Ian Fleming, never happy with Sean Connery, wanted David Niven from the beginning.
Really?
Wanted David Niven to play Bond right from the jump, before anyone else had been cast. So yes, the movie was directed by 6 different people. Only 5 of them are credited, because the 6th one said, get my name off of that shit.
Well, isn't he credited as like additional material directed by something like that?
Well, Val Guest was credited twice, including for that guy's bits.
Gotcha.
He was credited as directed by Val Guest, and also additional sequences by Val Guest. In reality, the additional sequences were directed by someone else who wishes to remain nameless. The other directors were Kenneth Hughes.
What if it was Orson Welles? Orson Welles also stepped in.
Orson Welles famously insisted on directing his own scene when he was in The Third Man.
Yeah.
Which is also the best scene in that movie. So I wouldn't put it past him. No, he had a different weird demand for his scenes.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it. The other directors were Kenneth Hughes, Robert Parrish, Joseph McGrath, and John motherfucking Huston.
John Huston, who did The Maltese Falcon.
Yes.
Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
Yes.
The Man Who Would Be King.
Yes. Just like one of the greatest directors in Hollywood history.
Yeah.
Famous star of Chinatown, John Huston. What the fuck?
Yeah, and John Huston also acts in this.
And he acts in this very briefly, as he often did in movies that he directed. But another thing, there were so many scripts for this movie, so many drafts. Yes. One of them written by Billy Wilder.
Billy fucking Wilder. I would love to see that.
I know! When I tell you... And again, the movie is so disjointed. There are so many movies in this movie that if they were the whole movie, it would be my favorite movie.
Yeah.
But those aren't the movies we're watching this movie.
Yeah.
So I'll point a couple of them out as we go.
And Billy Wilder, if you're not familiar, I don't think much of Billy Wilder's draft survived. It sounds like not much of anybody's draft survived.
No, barely anything.
But Billy Wilder, director of The Apartment, Some Like It Hot, Double Indemnity, Lost Weekend.
Sunset Boulevard, right?
Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah.
Again, a huge powerhouse talent.
Oh, and I think he also did one of my favorite one of the best Sherlock Holmes movies ever made.
The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes.
Yes!
Which I still need to watch. I have a copy, but I've never...
Great. Fucking great movie.
Billy Wilder's fantastic.
He is. Famously great, Billy Wilder.
I don't know if anyone has ever said it.
Say it, Brad. Say it.
Billy Wilder's a talent.
Woo! Hot takes. Hot takes. Okay. There's an extremely brief cold open.
Right.
Which I just want to point out, we'll get over it very quickly, because the movie does too, where a character named Lieutenant Mathis of the Secret Police, who is a hugely important character in both the book and the 2006 movie.
Appears twice in this movie.
He appears twice very briefly in this movie and barely does anything.
He looks like a cartoon bird.
Yes, he absolutely does.
Or the Willem Dafoe fish in Finding Nemo.
Yes, yeah, no, I would agree with that. But he shows up, he talks to James Bond, who is played by Peter Sellers in this opening. He shows Bond his credentials, there's a dick joke, it's a small one, and then the theme song begins.
Yes.
And that's, and you find out later that scene was actually intended to happen way later in the movie.
Which makes sense.
Which makes total sense, but I guess I'll just say this right off the bat. It happens. You find out about it later, but Peter Sellers was going to be the star of this movie for a long time, and then he walked out in the middle of production.
Yeah.
But they still wanted to very much, and because his scenes ended up being way later in the movie, I think they really wanted the audience to know, don't worry, Peter Sellers is in the movie. So they put this little bit of him at the beginning, which just makes it even worse because the Bond movies are so famous for their action cold opens. But whatever. The theme song begins. And I will say, Susan mentioned that she really loved the music in this movie.
Yeah.
I agree with Susan.
There's some great music.
The music was actually nominated for an Oscar, but lost to another piece of shit, Dr. Dolittle. But, like, no, the music in this movie is great.
And the opening theme is done by Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass.
Nice. I don't know much about them, but I like the name Herb.
Yeah.
Yeah. And their music is good in this movie.
And the opening credits are actually flash forwards to the closing credits.
Oh my God, you're right.
Yeah, because, spoiler alert, you see them all as angels for a reason.
Yes, I wonder why that might be. It's because they all get saved at the end of the movie.
Exactly.
This movie is based on the Bible.
It is.
We weren't joking.
But yeah, very stylish, very
fun opening. It seems to be, it's a little bit animated, which made me, that and the Peter Sellers connection made me suddenly wonder if we were going to get like a Pink Panther style. A Peter Panther style opening, but we don't quite get there. Anyway, the movie opens with a whole bunch of bowler-hatted gentlemen being picked up by a chauffeur in a field of sheep.
Yes.
One of them is a very Irish John Huston.
I think he's supposed to be Scottish.
Oh, is he supposed to be Scottish?
Yes, because eventually they go to... Because he's M.
That's
Nick
right.
Terry,
and then they
go to visit
he's
his
supposed to be Scottish.
widow.
Sorry. Okay, I'm racist. Not the first time the word racist will be used in this review, I promise. But anyway, so John Huston is M, and as he and the other bowler-hatted people are on their way to visit someone in a car, he starts philosophizing about what makes a good spy, saying that a good spy remains pure. Mm-hmm. They then drive up to this insane mansion owned by James Bond.
The original James Bond
is played by David Niven.
He has all these lions on his property. And we get one of my favorite lines, I think, comes from the Russian guy who says, yes. I did not come here to be devoured by symbols of monarchy.
Okay, that was a pretty good line. Yeah, that was a pretty good line.
But they talk about all the stuff that Bond does, like he plays Debussy for hours a day. He stands on his head. He takes his intestines down and washes them by hand.
What was that? Like, I didn't understand that.
I assumed it was some Eastern mysticism.
Okay.
Like a yogi thing.
Okay, I guess that makes some sense. But yeah, so David Niven is the original James Bond. The one that we know from the movies does exist in this universe, but is never seen. He is a new guy who was... There's a popular fan theory with all the different actors who play James Bond that it's just a title and the 00 number being passed down. In this movie, that's canon.
Yeah.
The original James Bond was far from the suave, debonair person that we know.
He stutters.
He's entirely celibate.
Yes.
He's a bit of an intellectual. He's nerdy. He's dedicated to peace. And I think he says something where in his day, when he was a spy, it wasn't all like car chases and gunfights. When he was a spy, it was more about number crunching and like listening at keyholes and stuff like that.
And he also comes at the gadgets. Mm-hmm. He's like another line I love when he's
dressing, because all the bowler-hatted people, I should say, are the heads of the different secret services from around the world.
CIA, MI6, KGB, and whatever France has.
And there's a sort of half-hearted gag about all the letters and numbers that they use, which is whatever. But anyway.
But Bond is going addressing all the secret gadgets they have on their person. He's like, "You're jokes-up spies, gentlemen."
Yeah, I gotta say, David Niven is one of those actors who could read the phone book and be great. Like, I would listen to the audiobook. So yeah, and now this new guy is James Bond, and
he's a sexual acrobat.
And David Niven finds that absolutely horrifying. Yeah. He's disgusted with that. And this is one of those movies that I wish had been the whole movie.
Yeah.
This bit, because this is the bit that was directed by John Huston, obviously, and because John Huston's there. But because I referenced in my notes the movie Sherlock's Smarter Brother with Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
If that was that kind of a movie, This would be great.
Yeah.
But that's not what we get.
There's a lot of potentially good movies in this movie.
But yeah, all the spy networks in the world have united. There isn't some sort of enemy who is never fully identified, but we later learn is Smersh.
Headed by Dr. Noah.
We
hear twice.
Who has somehow managed to kill almost every secret agent in the world.
And they all die in some sort of sexual situation. In a brothel and something like that.
Yeah, so as David Niven says later in the movie, it's a pity that almost the entire espionage world has been populated by sex maniacs. Which is a very David Niven line.
Yeah.
Niven Bond, as I referred to him in my notes, needs to come out of retirement and help them. But Niven Bond has retired, and he retired because of a broken heart. He had a romance back in the day with Mata Hari that ended with him having to trick her and lure her to her death for Queen and Country, which made him want to retire. I just gotta say, that got fucking dark really fucking fast.
Yeah, I mean, they gloss over it.
They gloss over it really bad, and I couldn't stop thinking about that line, that backstory for the rest of the movie. By the way, because I didn't know who Mata Hari was when I watched this movie. I did the research.
I was just about to give some background on Mata Hari. But
Mata Hari was actually
a real-life spy.
Not really. I mean, she wasn't? Not really. Like, she did do some spying, but she was like... She had her arm twisted into doing it. Like, she was forced to do it by various governments, and she never liked doing it, so she would never send real information. She just sent celebrity gossip overseas because she hated being a spy so much. She just wanted to be a sex worker. She wanted to dance and take her clothes off. And she was eventually executed by the French government for espionage. They knew she wasn't a real spy, but they needed a scapegoat to rally support for the war.
They had all these guillotines.
Right.
What the fuck else are you going to do?
And they knew about her reputation as a sex worker, that she was a foreigner and a divorcee, and they knew that it would be easy to convince the public that she would be duplicitous.
Yes.
So they killed her to make sure that the French people wouldn't get mad at them for continuing to be involved in the war. But as Mata Hari herself said about herself during her trial... This might be apocryphal. She said, "A harlot, yes. Traitorous, never." It's kind of iconic.
It's what my bumper sticker says.
But apparently a lot of this information wasn't known until 2017. It still makes me kind of uncomfortable about some of the jokes made at Mata Hari's expense during the course of this film.
I guess.
Yeah.
She's dead.
She is. Yeah. Quite, unjustly.
Well, we can debate this all day. I think she deserved it.
All right.
Everything you're telling me sounds like she deserved it.
Right, she was divorced. She deserved a death. Yeah. Hi, Susan.
Oh no, the Pope was the judge.
So anyway, Niven Bond now won't come back, even though M even hands him a personalized letter from the Queen herself.
This is a movie where I didn't laugh a lot during it, but relating some of the jokes, it's funnier because there's a lot of potential. Like, Bond doesn't... John Huston as M just takes out this envelope that says Windsor Castle on the back.
Yeah.
And Bond doesn't even look at it. It's so cliche. He's like, I don't know. Right.
Now, what would have been much funnier? Said, like, but did you consider this? And he pulls out a photo of the Queen, and it's signed. He's like, and Bond was like tempted. He's like, no, not even for her. That would have been funnier. But so, in the moment that did make me laugh the most, probably out of the whole movie, he says, no, M, not even for her. And he said, all right, well, I'm sorry, James. Hit it, and orders a bombing of Bond's estate.
It's a mortar strike on... Yeah, this is the fucking plan. Like, oh, Bond doesn't want to come. We'll destroy everything he owns.
We'll destroy everything he owns, and it's the best.
It's fucking great, and...
It's so good.
Even better, it ends up killing all four of the intelligence heads, including blowing off M's toupee.
Right. I don't think... Now, in the scene itself, I don't think that they were all supposed to die.
Probably not.
Because, it just kind of looks like M's toupee falls off, and then there's suddenly a very hard cut.
There's a lot of hard cuts in this movie.
Yes, because 6 directors. But there's suddenly a very hard cut to Smersh headquarters. This is the first time that we hear the name Smersh. After this, it will be assumed that everyone knows what Smersh is, but this is the first time we hear the name Smersh is when Smersh themselves say it.
Yeah.
By the way, Smersh sounds like it's a comedy name for an organization.
Yeah.
Smersh is the name of the evil organization Bond is always fighting in the books. It was a name of essentially the MI6 in Russia. Oh. And it's even used in the Bond movies to refer to that. In the main series of Bond movies, they didn't want...
Such a goofy name?
Well, yes, but they also didn't want the Russians to be the bad guys. They wanted to be able to sell the movies to Russia, so they wanted a more... They wanted a group of terrorists who were trying to pit the countries against each other. Gotcha. So they changed it from Smersh to Spectre, because also Spectre is just a better name.
Yeah, it is.
But because Spectre is a concept for the Eon films, anyone else who adapts Bond has to use Smersh. So that's why it's Smersh. I just thought I would mention that. But yes, so Smersh, it just suddenly cuts to Smersh, and Smersh is like, M's dead and Bond's going to visit his house. Which tells me that John Huston's part of the movie is over.
Yeah.
Yeah. He directed those scenes on the Bond estate. The Bond estate blew up, and then something happened where he walked off the movie. But yeah, the John Huston scenes are probably the last time the movie feels like a real movie to me. And then it just kind of
then it becomes sort of this stream of conscious spy pastiche that desperately wants you to laugh.
Yes, I would completely agree with that. Before we have the time to even let the absurdity of Bond's house blowing up settle in, smash cut to Smersh. Their plan now, because Bond is in his comically old car driving across the Scottish countryside to visit M's house and
McTerry
Castle, and deliver the news to his widow that he is dead, and also deliver his toupee.
Yes, the
only thing remaining of M is his toupee,
and he has a nice line where it's like, I don't know if this is accessory or an anatomical component.
She says it's a heirloom.
Yeah,
and I wrote, groan. It's a good joke.
It's an acceptable joke.
It's an acceptable joke. It's an acceptable joke. But Smersh's mission now, because again, this Bond is celibate.
They have entirely infiltrated the castle.
Yes. They've replaced the widow.
M's widow is not actually M's widow. It's a Smersh agent called Mimi.
Yes.
And all of the castle is now filled with nubile young women.
And their plan is to ruin Bond's celibate image, which... A, he's a spy.
Yeah.
What image are you talking about? 2, James Bond's celibate image has already been ruined, if he had any to begin with, by the new Bond.
Yeah.
That was what he was complaining about in the opening.
I think they were trying to undermine David Niven's confidence in himself. It's like...
Oh, okay. I guess that would work. But then, say that, I guess? I don't know.
Yeah.
Basically, what follows is this movie's take on the Castle Anthrax scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Basically.
But not nearly as funny.
No, and much longer.
And somehow way incredibly racist towards the Scottish. And I didn't know you could be racist towards the Scottish, but some of the jokes were getting so stupid that I was having a problem with them.
So again, all these nubile young women are trying to have sex with David Niven, they lure him into the bath.
Oh, one thing I forgot to say. Huston said about this movie, he said, I wrote my movie Beat the Devil on location making the film.
Oh, yeah.
And he said that was disciplines compared to this movie. Beat the Devil was day to day. This is moment to moment.
Yeah.
It feels like it.
It does. It really does. It feels like this is a movie made by accident.
Yes.
It feels like a production company had 8 different movies and they're like, fuck, these are only 20 minutes long. This isn't a movie.
And again, you look into the history of the production, and that's essentially exactly what happened. Niven Bond goes up to his room that's been prepared for him and finds it covered in nude female sculpture, photography, and artwork, and several hot ladies there being very handsy, claiming to be M's daughters, and every time he's like, oh, you don't have to undress me, and everything like that, they're like, oh, we always did it with Daddy. Oh, God. It's a very 60s joke of it's hard not to take advantage of jailbait, but, David Niven is charming, so he mostly pulls it off.
Well, There are 11 of them. They're
Yes.
age 16 to 19.
Yes.
16 is legal in Britain.
Oh, that's right. It is. Right.
So,
okay.
Still gross.
Still gross.
Still gross.
Still gross.
But technically legal.
They try various things. Again, they undress him. They put him in a bubble bath with another lady. At which point Bond just like turns the cold water tap on to distract them both, and he gets out. Their scheme is brought down because they're trying to dance and drink as much as Scottish people do, and they just can't handle it, and they all pass out.
Is that what that was supposed to be?
That was supposed to be.
I thought like
there are
maybe...
a bunch of French people. All of the agents in this castle for some reason are French, pretending to be Scottish, and they can't handle drinking and dancing as much as the Scots do, so they all pass out and Bond goes to bed.
Yeah, I had no clue. I thought like maybe they had drugged the wine and then drank the drug wine or whatever the fuck they're drinking.
No, I think it was just like, you know what Scottish people be like. They drink and they dance. That Mimi comes to Bond in the middle of the night, requests that he doodle her, which I thought was hilarious. But she...
Do you think she literally meant like, hey, just get a scratch pad and like... Just draw a stick figure with some titties.
I'm looking for... Doodle me like one of your French girls. And he's like, oh, how dare you. This is my widow's right to be doodled by my husband's best friend. So now that you have rejected me, you need to compete in a boulder toss.
Yeah, they call it a wassail.
A wassail, that's right, yes. Which I thought was just another way for them to convince him to have sex. They were going to throw a bunch of scantily-clad ladies at him and have them mud wrestle together.
No, they have a bunch of kilted
buff men. Which I guess could be another way of them. They're like, okay, well, he doesn't like all the ladies. Let's tempt him with the men. Which would have been another way to take this gag, which would have been funnier, but they didn't. Also, they have challenged him to a match that apparently none of them can win.
No, all these very strong men have a very difficult time controlling these heavy stone balls.
Yes.
I don't know what the game is supposed to be. If they're supposed to like medicine ball it at each other.
I think that was the idea.
Okay.
Because like that's literally when Bond finally does it, and Bond is skinny little David Niven. Old skinny David Niven is the only one who can pick up this boulder. And when he does, he literally tosses it to another one of the guys, and he just gets like thrown through a wall.
Yeah. And then he judo chops one of the stone balls in half and
Mimi
is so in love.
She drops this character and just immediately goes all French on it, and she is just so enamored with his show of strength. And the fellow agents turn on her immediately. They lock her up and they're like, "Oh no, if you've fallen for this guy, then you're going to be a problem." But they have another plan. They plant a homing beacon in Niven Bond's clothes. And then the next day, as they're shooting grouse...
Yeah, they go on a grouse hunt. And here's where I first started to get bored. Like, during all that Scottish castle shit.
Blame you.
And then we get a great image of bombs, for whatever reason, made up to look like grouse.
They launch a bunch of grouse bombs that are homing bombs that home in on the homing button on his coat, and they start flying towards Niven Bond, but he just starts shooting them
like you
would, because they're on a grouse shoot.
Yeah,
but whatever. They start shooting.
The bombs come very slowly it's one at a time. It's very polite,
right?
I mean, and they do
keep blowing up.
They do a cute bit where Bond takes off his suspenders.
Well, Mimi escapes from where they've caught her. She has this whole bit where like she's trying to get out of the castle. She gets to him. She tells him about the button. So yeah, he takes off his suspenders.
Button. Who's got the button? And David Niven.
But not for long, because they shoot the button with the suspenders using as a slingshot to the lady agents. So the homing bomb goes towards them, but then they throw it back.
Well, I think they use a garter belt to toss it back.
They use a garter belt to toss it back, and then they use the suspenders and shoot it back again. Yeah. And then they blow up. And do we sound bored?
Yeah.
because we are so bored.
Again, like, using the suspenders, cute, great Bond trick.
Yes.
And then they keep doubling down on it.
They keep doubling down.
Let's cut some time. We get the joke. They're using...
This movie is something like 3 hours long. We're 30 minutes in.
It's like 2:19.
Okay.
It feels 3 hours.
It feels like 4 hours.
It took me all day to get through this
The new Bond movie No Time to Die is 3 hours. That felt like 20 minutes.
Well, that's
my
modern
life.
filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's a different style of filmmaking that is just easier to digest.
Right. They get to the end of this fight scene.
They foil the plot.
They foil the plot. Mimi starts acting like she's dying for some reason.
Yeah.
But she's not dying. She's just horny, but also has decided to go and join a nunnery.
Yeah, because I think it's because Bond doesn't want her and no other man will do.
Right.
So she goes off to join a convent that's conveniently located right next to the castle.
Right over the hill. This is probably one of the funniest scenes in the movie for me, just because these two actors are so good.
They're
good. Playing off of each other.
And this is a funny joke where it's like, I'm going to go join a convent, like just out of nowhere.
And she's like, she lives right over there. It's good.
But my problem, and I made this specific note.
Oh, no, and as she's walking away, he reaches after her and then falls over because he's still not wearing his suspenders and his pants are around his neck. That's a good joke. But anyway.
But while these are good jokes, I wasn't laughing at any of it. I was not laughing out loud at any of it. I was just sort of like, huh, that's funny. She's going to join a nunnery. And in a better movie that could really play well.
Right, it's sort of the golf clap of comedy, where you're just sort of like, funny.
Bond is heading back to London.
That suddenly has a car chase with a remote-controlled milk truck and a lady who is also driving another car who looked distractingly like Kim Cattrall to me.
Okay.
There's great music playing during the scene that does not fit the mood of the scene at all.
No, there's also... This movie has fantastic production design.
Oh my god, yes.
No matter what else is going on, I don't know how they managed it, but the production, the sets... It's all fucking fantastic. There's this great bit, as we said, the milk float, which is what they call them over there.
Oh, they don't call them milk trucks?
They call them milk floats.
Milk floats, even though they're still trucks?
The Smersh control center,
yes,
where they are controlling the milk float.
Oh my god, I forgot about this.
Wonderful, like, remote control car track around it.
Yes, where they're tracking where Bond, the Kim Cattrall lady, and the milk float are. And it's so pointless. It makes no difference to the movie at all, but it's so good. It's so cool.
I mean, the actual chase, I was like,
yeah, whatever. Yeah. Like, it's literally seconds after the bird bomb sequence, and I didn't care about that. I certainly don't give a shit about this.
No, but just the production design of the Smersh control center was fucking great.
Yeah.
Eventually, Bond, like, shifts position so that the Kim Cattrall lady is in front of the milk float.
Yeah.
And I think she gets blowed up.
Yeah, no, Niven Bond does barely anything during the scene. It's just basically the Smersh agents fucking up and they blow themselves up.
Yeah.
But he arrives pretty much effortlessly at MI6 headquarters, where we discover that Niven Bond has now been promoted to become the new M.
Mm-hmm.
He shows up and sees a woman that he thinks is Moneypenny and immediately makes out with her.
Yes.
And she says, no, I'm actually Moneypenny's daughter.
Which is weird because we're told how celibate he is, but he's been with Mata Hari. It's clear he's been with Moneypenny.
Yes. Well, you'll notice that this is the scene that he also stops stuttering.
Yes, and he calls that out. He's like, I haven't stuttered since I've been here. Have I? And she's like, no. Good, I don't have time for that now.
Right. So essentially, the way that before I looked into the production, the way that I was looking at this movie, I was sort of like, okay, it feels like what happened was they would have a director for a couple of scenes, that director would quit, the next director would come on and be told, hey, these are the scenes that just happened, no script, figure out what happens next and go. And whoever the director was who pulled up after the Scottish bits was like, okay, I don't get the whole stuttering Niven Bond thing. Let's just drop it. And so Niven, from this point on in the film, is essentially a completely different character.
Yeah. And
the whole thing about him being the spies must remain pure, that whole bit, forget it. It's not a part of the film anymore.
It's not, at least it's not important. Like, it doesn't come up again. It's not.
The Mata Hari bit gets mentioned a couple of times, but that's about it.
It comes back. It's actually sort of a bigger part of the movie.
Later on, yeah.
Here's the thing. I love the idea of Bond as a stuttering sort of nebbish.
Sure.
Like, I wish there was a modern Bond movie like that.
That'd be great.
I think they should still cast Idris Elba as the next Bond. But just make him into this weak sort of, not weak, but
yeah.
just sort of I don't want to fuck. I don't speak so good.
Just zigs wherever Bond usually zags.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that would be great. And just like, yeah, have hire Idris Elba, and everyone's like, oh my god, he's going to be such a sex machine. He's going to be so fucking rock and roll. And then he comes in and he's just sort of he's like just Hugh Granting it up the entire time.
I was going to try to do an Idris Elba, but I can't do an Idris Elba like that. It's so hard because
it'd be so weird for everyone, and it would be great. It would be fantastic. Yeah, so Niven Bond's a completely different character as from this movie onward. I wrote down, I wonder if having 6 different directors might cause some issues with character consistency. Niven Bond learns that his successor to the Bond name is no longer considered a member of active service because he's doing television, which I think must be some sort of timely reference to something one of the actors from James Bond was doing that I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find anything online about it.
Because this is from 1967, there are some jokes which I just do not fucking understand.
Yeah.
He also learns that almost all the active agents, as we mentioned before, are kaput.
Absolutely kaput. They've all been killed. He wants to know about one in particular because James Bond, on top of having another agent in the service who has now taken his name as James Bond, and the James Bond we know about from the opening, played by Peter Sellers, none of these are the same character. Why would you think that? There is also another James Bond, Jimmy Bond, the nephew of James Bond, who was also an active agent, but was never quite good at it.
Yeah.
And we cut to now a scene of presumably either where Jimmy Bond is now, what David Niven thinks Jimmy Bond is doing now, or something Jimmy Bond did in the past. Who fucking knows?
Yeah.
We cut to a sketch starring Woody Allen as James Bond, is the joke. Right, yes. And basically, this is like one of the weakest Woody Allen bits.
It feels very much like Bananas. Have you ever seen Bananas?
I have not. Is that a Woody Allen picture?
That is a Woody Allen picture. It's back when he was doing like strict comedies.
Right. You know, Woody Allen famously did a lot of very more sort of 60s standard comedies, and then Annie Hall happened and he started making art.
Yeah, just movies about how he cheats on women.
Basically, movies that people thought were very truthful and honest and interesting, and then they found out, oh wait, no, you're kind of like the Frank Miller situation where you're like, this is great satire. Oh no, you mean this?
Yeah.
And then you find out oh my god, you're an asshole. But he's doing the bits he does in this scene in particular feel like someone doing an impression of Woody Allen.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
He's being led to a firing squad, and he's like, my doctor says I can't have bullets into my body at any time. What if I said I was pregnant? And I'm like, God, shut up.
But he ends up escaping from one firing squad, jumping over a wall, and into another firing squad.
That's a good joke.
That's a good gag.
That's a good gag.
Again, didn't laugh at it.
No. Didn't laugh at it. Mostly because I was just looking at child predator, but yeah, kind of hard to watch Woody Allen movies in this the year of our Lord 2022.
It is hard, and it sort of sucks because I do enjoy Annie Hall.
And
Bananas. I thought that was a good movie.
Look, Bill Cosby is a talented and funny comedian, or was. Doesn't mean he wasn't a rapist.
No.
Yeah.
Do you think Woody Allen and Bill Cosby ever called each other up and exchange tips?
They may have in the past, knowing that kind of person and how pervasive and accepted that was in Hollywood for so many years.
I find it's easier when they're a child. Where's the Jello pudding?
That's my ingenious.
That's your incredibly.
I think it goes something like this.
What a good take on Bill Cosby. Jello pudding. I wonder.
No one's ever made that.
No one's ever made that reference before. So, as we mentioned earlier, all of Spydom has been made up of sex maniacs for a couple of years now.
Ooh, Invisible Sex Maniacs, like my favorite movie.
Like your favorite movie, Invisible Sex Maniacs, starring Mads Mikkelsen.
Just in one Invisible Sex Maniac.
Oh, sorry. That Sex Maniacs is the sequel.
I wish there was
Invisible Sex Maniacs. Okay.
We'll watch Invisible Sex Maniac one day for the show.
Sure.
More commonly known as just Invisible Maniac, but the alternate title is so much funnier to me.
It's way funnier, yeah. It's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's that exact right amount of syllables that you
need. Mutant Ninja Turtles, no. Teenage Mutant Turtles, no. You gotta have all the elements.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Yeah. It works. Anyway, so because all spies are sex maniacs, Smersh has developed the perfect strategy. They will train a force of entirely sexy lady agents to seduce these sex maniacs and then kill them. It's the perfect plan, can't be topped. Except that Niven Bond has the perfect idea to combat this, to select an AFSD, an anti-female spy device, the one man that every female will want. Gay people are never brought up in this movie,
I was just about to say there's a very simple solution to this.
There's a very simple solution to this that no one talks about in this movie. The one man every female will want, and then train him not to want women.
Can you name any gay spies?
The existence of gay people would make this movie so much better. Well, I mean, Bond was revealed to be bisexual in Skyfall.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that part of Skyfall.
Javier Bardem comes up to him and is like,
remember that time I sucked your dick?
No, he's coming on to him and he's like, this will be a first for you, Bond, hey? Just like trying to gay panic Bond. And Bond just smiles at him and says, what makes you think this is my first? And just goes right back at him.
That's cool.
It's great. And that was a moment that apparently Daniel Craig had to really fight the studio about.
Good for him.
To make sure they got it in there. They send Moneypenny.
You know who would be a good gay spy?
Who?
Rip Taylor.
I forget who Rip Taylor is.
Wore a toupee, threw confetti. I think he was in Wayne's World 2. You know who I'm talking about?
No.
Rip Taylor.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. There's no more information I can give you.
Wore a toupee, threw confetti.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Was gay.
Was gay. Right. Rip Taylor.
Maybe if I show you a picture.
All I'm thinking of is Rip Torn wearing a very obviously blonde wig and just throwing confetti at aliens and Men in Black.
Where's that dick? I need a dick in my asshole. This guy.
Okay. Yeah, vaguely. I vaguely remember. I don't think I've seen him in much.
I just... For a time, he was famous for being Rip Taylor.
Sure.
Pretty much. But I think he'd be a good spy. He seems like he could...
We seem to have been talking about this guy a lot, but I would love... Recently, but I would love to see Paul Lynde as James Bond. just.
But I don't want.
My name is Pussy Galore. Oh Jesus!
Maybe tone it down a little.
Just a little bit. God.
I don't know if it needs to be galore while I'm here. But I don't want Paul Lynde to play a gay Bond. I want him to play a super hetero Bond. And he has to try to pass. And it's like, oh, I can't wait to see your vagina.
He's just can't wait to see your vagina. Just like he can't even get the word out.
Let me at them nipples.
Which we'll get to it, but okay. So, but anyway,
but
they send
AFSD.
Yes,
is named Cooper,
which was awesome to have Agent Cooper in this movie.
Yeah, anytime someone's named Cooper, we get unnecessarily excited.
Moneypenny selects Agent Cooper based on his kissing ability.
Mm-hmm.
Agent Cooper is actually played by an actor named Terrence Cooper, so Cooper is his real name.
Do you think it was a Tony Danza thing where he couldn't have a different name, or else he wouldn't respond?
I mean, I think they probably were going with well, your name's going to be James Bond, because this is the moment when, as I said in the plot description, Niven Bond...
For whatever reason, it's never fully explained, let's confuse Smersh.
Let's confuse the enemy. All agents from now on will be called James Bond, and their call sign will be 007. So every agent is now James Bond, including the women.
Yes.
So they were like, this guy's just going to be...
this is where the women's lib movement really took off.
Susan
B. Anthony rose out of her grave and was like,
right.
Yes.
She was like, rock on.
Her exact words.
Rock on.
And then her moldering jaw fell off.
I guess they figured out, the guy's name is just going to be James Bond. Who cares what his name from before is? It's just Cooper. But the funniest thing about this is that the producer, whose name I've already forgotten and I'm not going to look him up again because I don't care, the guy who made this movie happen,
Kevin Feige,
exactly. He promised multiple people that they would be James Bond during multiple conversations and just forgot. And then, like, when they came to him later, he was like, oh, yeah, you're in the movie. Yeah. And that was what happened with this one, where he met this guy, and the guy was like, I'd love to play James Bond. He's like, I'm making a Bond movie. They're literally having drinks at the pub, and he's like, you are my James Bond.
Now I'm picturing W.C. Fields sitting next to him in a bar, like, oh, you want to be James Bond? I'm making a James Bond picture.
This is definitely a move that a W.C. Fields character would make. It's absolutely a move that they would make. And then, like, they were like, oh, Peter Sellers is interested in making the movie, so suddenly Peter Sellers is in it, but this guy's also in it.
Yeah, Peter Sellers. I want him to be Bond. Let's have him as Bond.
So, yeah, no, the guy who made this movie is a slime ball.
So, to test out Cooper and his ability to withstand female charms,
right,
he goes through a line of women, and we get some great racism here.
Oh God, the racism! There's racism throughout the whole movie, but yeah, they go in and they just have a bunch of these hot ladies who are all 60s hot, which is one of the hottest kinds of hot.
Yeah.
So he's really in trouble, and they all go at him and try and seduce him, and the idea is that he's supposed to fend off their charms and judo throw them around.
And here's my first laugh out loud moment.
Yes.
One of the very few.
Mm-hmm.
The women come up, they kiss him. Mm-hmm. The first woman comes up, tries to kiss him, and he says, "Not today, Lorelei," and just fucking judo flips her. And I was like, that's hilarious.
So unnecessary.
But, again, like the earlier suspender bit, they keep fucking doing it.
They do it over. Exactly. They do it to death.
And again, we get the very nice racism. The second woman is named Tingling, and she is clearly a white woman in yellowface.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, no, that's not a real Asian woman.
Oh, man, I thought she was Asian. I'm an idiot. I'm an absolute idiot. You know what? Actually, the next Bond movie that came out after this was You Only Live Twice, the movie where famously Sean Connery was in yellowface for most of it, which was accurate to the book. But yeah, so she comes in and she says, "So inscrutable."
Yeah,
Mr.
she actually
Bond.
says the fucking word inscrutable.
She says, "So inscrutable, that's usually our bit." And then he throws her as well. I've been watching a lot of 60s stuff recently for no real reason. Well, I'm in a Star Trek kick right now, but like I've been watching a lot of 60s stuff because of that. So inscrutable is a racial term for Asian people.
It is not. It's just a regular adjective, meaning like hard to figure out, hard to.
Right.
But classically, Asian people have been stereotypically referred to as inscrutable.
Right.
Ken Jeong in Community even mockingly says, "Oh, we're so inscrutable." Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like it's a trope.
I've heard this line a lot lately, and so when this movie came up, I was like, "Oh, there's that fucking thing again." So I knew it was a racial term. There's a bit that I never understood from Star Trek the Animated Series until this year when I was learning about this. Sulu does some sort of like karate move on a bad guy. Sulu has never known karate in any other episode of any Star Trek thing ever except this episode, but he suddenly knows it because, Asian. And Captain Kirk says, "You'll have to teach me that move." And he says, "Oh, I don't know if you can learn this move, sir. You have to be inscrutable." And Kirk says, "Sulu, you're the most scrutable man I know."
Just so you know, you can say the word inscrutable. Like, you can use that in everyday conversation. It's not a racial term.
Okay.
But it's just that has commonly been...
If you use it in relation to an Asian person, that might be an issue.
Yeah. I don't know that it's not as common anymore.
Right.
Now that we're more used to Asian people.
Mm-hmm.
But it used to be part of Eastern mysticism. Like, oh, they're so strange and we can't know them.
You know what was a racist term in England for Asian people that really knocked me out? Celestial.
Yeah, that's another very old term.
I didn't know, because there's a character in Doctor Who is like this sort of a Mr. Misspit, like a cosmic being who just likes to fuck with people all the time. And he was called the Celestial Toy Maker. And I thought it was because he's a toy maker from space. But then you watch like what little of that episode remains, and it's Michael Gough in yellowface with like a Mandarin outfit.
Yeah,
and it's and that was the whole thing. That was the whole bit, and I'm just horrified by that. But yeah, so also one other thing before we get back to the plot. Weirdly, a big fan of this movie. Another huge fan of this movie. Alan Moore.
That makes sense.
He incorporated the idea of not only the original James Bond becoming M, but also the idea of Bond being a name and legend that's passed on from agent to agent for propaganda purposes.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
In Volume 4,
Campion Bond.
The last volume of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and also utilized the Jimmy Bond, Woody Allen character, and the actual ending of this movie as plot points in that whole thing.
Yeah, I'm sure I read that at one point. After Volume 2, I sort of stopped giving so much of a shit about
the last volume
LXG.
of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is...
it's not my favorite.
It's bizarre. I haven't fully read it myself, but Kyle Calgren just did a breakdown on it, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, it's typical late period Alan Moore.
Yes.
But Campion Bond, presumably a predecessor to James Bond,
yes,
first appears in Volume 1.
In Volume 1, yeah. He's training to be the ultimate anti-lady assassin.
Yes. And we
very
leave
progressive.
that movie.
And we leave that movie
and go into the Peter Sellers
And
movie.
I just want to point this out. He is not seen until the climax. Mm-hmm. He's gone.
Yeah.
That entire plot line is gone until the end of the movie. And there are many fans, not necessarily of this movie, but of just Bond lore in general, who still think that this guy, Terrence Cooper, would have made a good Bond on his own. And he's not bad. I don't know if I'm fully on board the Terrence Cooper train, but he's fine.
He's handsome. He can do a judo throw.
He's got a good chin. He's got a good chin. Anyway, on to someone with good other things, but not necessarily a chin. Ursula Andress, the famously, not the first Bond girl, but like the first like iconically Bond girl, Honey Ryder and Dr. No, enters this movie as the first book character from Casino Royale we've had in a while.
Yeah.
Vesper Lynd. She shows up and she's like, oh, Vesper. And I'm like, oh my God, this is an adaptation of Casino Royale. I completely forgot. Holy shit.
Part of me wonders if her name is Vespa, like the motor scooter. Like the motor scooter, but his British accent changes it to Vesper.
Right, because of British people and their R's. Yeah. Vesper Lynd in this movie is shown as an ex-00 agent.
Who's very rich now.
Who retired and joined the stock market and has become hella rich.
Honey Ryder sounds like if Winnie the Pooh were like in a Mad Max apocalypse. Oh, bother, I'm the Honey Ryder. If you all just come out and give me the honey, we can do this easy.
They're fighting over honey instead of oil. Because the bees got wiped out in the apocalypse, of course. I love this. We need to make this movie. Yeah. Winnie the Pooh just entered the public domain.
Oh, shit.
This year! We can do this!
We
can make this happen!
If Winnie the Pooh is going to be our enemy, our Morton Joe, our humongous... who's going to be the protagonist? Christopher Robin?
No, I think Christopher Robin is the gimp that he's like the giant, because he's so much bigger than everyone else.
Or
so
he
he's
could
like
be
the big mute gimp that he brings around.
Or he could be the wild child with the boomerang.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense, because like he's talking like this is all the stories from his childhood. And he's grown up now. He had a rough childhood. Christopher Robin did. I think the protagonist. Oh man, who would be funniest? I guess Tigger, because Tigger is the one in the stories that like comes. He's not one of them originally. He comes from outside and like comes in. So like Tigger is perfectly like the Tigger from canon, and then he's like at the point in his story where he enters the 100 Acre Wood, but he enters the 100 Acre Wood and it's so completely different than it's supposed to be. And they're like, we have. Like, just like Mad Max, the first thing he sees upon arriving is just a woman being fully raped in the middle of the desert. And he's just like, oh God.
I'm going to bounce along.
I'm going to bounce right out of here.
So Vesper's job is to...
Vesper is very rich, but Niven gets her back into the organization by threatening her with unpaid taxes.
Or to help her pay off her tax arrears.
Oh, okay. All right. But yeah, she comes in, and her job... She goes out and she finds a man named Evelyn Tremble.
Here's something that bothered me. Now, as Vesper mentions, Evelyn is a woman's name, but it is also a man's name if you pronounce it Evelyn.
Is it really?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know that there was that distinction.
There is. So in Downton Abbey, there's a character named Evelyn Napier, who's a man. So, and also in news radio, Phil Hartman's middle name is Evelyn.
Right.
Everyone pronounces it Evelyn, and he goes, "It's Evelyn."
It's a very Phil Hartman joke.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, Evelyn Tremble.
Yes.
Played by Dr. Peter Sellers.
Played by Dr. Peter Sellers.
Doctor of Assholery, Peter Sellers.
God. Yeah, so Peter Sellers, great comedic hero of mine. It's very rare that I see Peter Sellers in something and don't like what he's doing. In real life, toxic monster Peter Sellers.
Incredibly difficult to work with from the sounds of it.
He had worked with this producer on another movie called What's New Pussycat, named after the song. There is a bit at some point in this movie where they are about to escape into a sewer. They open the sewer lid, and you hear What's New Pussycat coming out of the sewer, and they close it. I guess that's a reference to the movie. I don't understand.
I guess, and I think it's David Niven who's like, "We don't want to go there," and it's like, "Why not? I love Tom Jones."
Right, yeah. I think that I don't fuck it. I don't give a shit. Right. Anyway, but okay, so Peter Sellers agreed to be in this movie as long as they gave him a character who was not James Bond, because he didn't see any point in playing James Bond, the coolest person in the world. But he did like the idea of playing a person who is not James Bond trying to be James Bond. And so that's kind of the character that he plays. He's not exactly suave, but he's not exactly his Inspector Clouseau character either. And he comes in, Vesper seduces him, and we find out that the reason why she's found him and selected him to become an agent and to become one of the James Bond characters is because he is actually an expert at the game of Baccarat.
Yes.
He has a system that cannot be beat as long as he has enough money to play with.
And he wrote a book about it.
He wrote an entire book about it.
That his soon-to-be opponent, Le Chiffre, has read. And
is a big fan of.
Is a big fan of.
Yeah.
So apparently Le Chiffre knows the Tremble method.
Yes.
But still needs to cheat, as we're going to find out.
Yes.
And will still also lose.
Right.
Spoiler alert.
Right. But I'm absolutely convinced, by the way, that Peter Sellers' look in this movie, he wears the Bond suits, but he's always got these big, thick rimmed glasses, which I believe were Peter Sellers' own glasses in real life. I'm convinced that his look in this movie is the inspiration for the Kingsmen look.
I can see it.
Because they all have those thick rimmed glasses. This movie is surprisingly influential.
Yeah.
As we see in this scene, because he and Vesper hit it off. They go back to her place because, as she puts it, "I always study your book at night."
Which makes it sound like she gets off to Baccarat books.
He has this great comeback. He's like, "Oh, is that where you study it?" I love that.
We should point out that the Peter Sellers bits are the most faithful to the adaptation of the source material Casino Royale.
I believe that the way things happen is that the Peter Sellers bits were filmed almost first, I think was the idea. They were filmed originally because they did want Peter Sellers. Peter Sellers was comedy royalty at the time.
Yeah.
So they wanted him to be the star. And then, because of the situation with him getting worse and worse and worse, and him leaving the project, and they had essentially, as we'll see as we go, basically the Peter Sellers bits are the book.
Yes.
Everything else is added on later. It seems like they had decided they were going to adapt the book with Peter Sellers. Then once he was gone, they just were like, what the fuck are we going to do now? And started making up other movies to go in and around his bits and fill out the rest of the plot.
And it's a weird situation. I heard you mention that Peter Sellers didn't want to play Bond because Bond is such a fixed character.
Right.
But at the same time, from what I read, I don't know if you mentioned this, Peter Sellers would also change the script so it was closer to the source material.
Would he? I didn't read that. I didn't see that.
Yeah, like he wanted to play it straight. He wanted to...
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did hear that people were like, he really wanted to play it straight, which makes sense because he's a lot less goofy in this movie than he usually is.
Yes.
He's still funny. He's still a very talented performer. But, like, he has some of my favorite lines, including, like, "Oh, is that where you study it?" I love that line. But it is much less arch than Peter Sellers usually is. But
Vesper takes Evelyn back to her place, and we get the original. It's all original music, but the big song from the soundtrack, Look of Love, written by Burt Bacharach.
This is the one that got nominated.
Yeah.
But as he arrives at her apartment, she disposes of a body.
Right.
And
for whatever reason.
It does nothing. It changes nothing about the plot, and it doesn't make any sense. But I thought I'd mention it because it confused me.
It did confuse me, too.
And I want the rest of you to be confused with me. It's important to me.
And she has a very efficient system for disposing of this body.
So clearly she does this a lot.
Unlike your system for disposing of a body, which is a bunch of pulleys, it's a bunch of chutes.
Yes.
You have to manually push it at one point.
Yeah.
It goes down a log flume.
It's the kind of thing where, like, you know, you start with a flawed idea and you keep, like, adding to it to make it work. But then, like, now it's all built and, like, I hate it. I understand it's bad.
It takes up so much space,
It takes up so much space. But, like, I've put so much work into it. It's there now. Like, I know I need to pull it all out and start over, but the idea of that just it feels wrong.
You put so much time into it.
Yeah. And you like, what else am I going to do? Not murder? Like, that's out of the question. So
you love murder.
I love murder. If there's two things I love...
Pussy and murder.
I was going to say murder and huffing paint, as we've established earlier.
Well, pussy's a close third.
Pussy's a close third, followed by Bible Man.
On a full moon, you turn into a literal pussy hound.
That's exactly right. That's a pussy hound. I hide in the bushes outside of Walmart, and that's the whole thing. Tremble has developed a foolproof system for winning at Baccarat. He and Vesper start playing around in her bedroom.
We get this
bit,
insane image.
Well, first she starts taking pictures of him with her camera, and he starts posing on this spinning bed, which is literally in Austin Powers.
Yeah.
That whole bit is in Austin Powers. This movie is so influential, I don't understand.
At one point, Vesper is jumping on this bed in her pink nightie.
That's right.
And pink feathers are blowing about in slow motion. Mm-hmm. While Peter Sellers does push-ups on what looks for all the world like a sex chair.
Yes. And he's talking to her, and she's talking back. But in the shots with him, he's doing the push-ups and talking normally. And it will cut back to her, and she's doing this slow-motion sort of like Madonna music video bullshit. And we hear her talking normally, but her mouth isn't moving. She's just doing this whole...
It's insane. It's insane, and it frustrates me because I wish I gave a shit.
I heard there have been reviews that have been written or filmed about this movie that have said, I bet this movie is better if you're high or something like that. I don't think it would be. I think... Because, like, I watched this movie sober.
Yeah.
I felt insane watching this movie. And I feel like if I were high, I would... Unless it was like a real relaxant or something like that, I would just feel like I was having a bad trip. Like that.
Well, that's not the terminology for weed usage. You don't have bad trips on weed.
No, but I mean, like, if any kind of drug, I mean, like, I feel like I would just be having a bad time watching this movie.
I'll say this. Mm-hmm. I watched this movie having a couple drinks.
Sure.
As I like to watch movies, just because it helps. One, it helps me pay attention bizarrely. And two,
that is bizarre.
I sort of like let down. It's easier for things to.
It relaxes you. I get that.
Relaxes me. I'm not so much like this is shit.
Right.
This is shit. I've seen it before.
Right. Yeah.
And I also smoke. I also smoke marijuana.
Sure.
So I watched this
somewhat affected,
and I was still like. Again, I was just going like, I wish I enjoyed this more because everything I'm seeing is insane. Mm-hmm. Everything I'm seeing is insane. It just is not working because everything between the insane bits sucks.
Yeah, the movie is fucking weird. I said it at the top. I'll say it again. I've never seen anything like it.
No, it's absolutely bizarre.
But it's so crazy to me that it's this crazy. It's this weird,
but not enjoyable.
Boring as hell.
It is. I don't.
Except to Susan Allen Moore and Michael Myers, apparently.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then we get a bit which is...
Peter Sellers starts dressing up. He plays Dress 'em Up.
He plays Dress Up. It's basically an excuse for him to do bits, different characters. It's essentially the makeup scene in Mrs. Doubtfire, where they just keep putting different looks on Robin so that he can do different voices. It's the exact same scene. He gets into full Hitler cosplay at some point.
And he stays in that Hitler outfit longer than I thought he would.
Longer than I was comfortable with.
And then he dresses up as Napoleon, and he pulls a magazine out that says Sonny Elba. That's a funny joke. Didn't laugh out loud at it, but it's funny.
I didn't get it.
Elba is the island that Napoleon was exiled to.
Ah, that's funny.
You've never heard the palindrome, Abel was I, ere I saw Elba?
No.
Oh.
Now I have, though.
Well, I guess you're dumb as shit.
I am dumb as shit.
So I was wondering, when he dresses up as Napoleon, I was like, oh, I'm surprised they didn't do a short joke for Napoleon. They didn't do the short joke for Napoleon because next, Peter Sellers dresses up as Jean Toulouse-Lautrec and is now on his knees because Lautrec was a short man.
Right. So they were saving it.
Yes.
They were saving that joke. But yes, so Vesper Lynd says that she will finance him for the £100,000 necessary to play Le Chiffre with Peter Sellers' special Baccarat technique.
Now, let me ask you the $64,000 question.
Okay.
Why the fuck do they need this money? Why the fuck do they need to beat Le Chiffre?
At this point in the movie, we don't know. There is a scene later on in the film that does explain it. But when they learn about that, in this later point in the film, it's as if they are receiving new information. So why that scene isn't before this scene? Fuck if I know. Again, it's the Pocket Ninjas thing. It's like the movie was edited in the dark. I don't know. But the idea is that they need to beat Le Chiffre. They need to clean Le Chiffre out.
Yes.
And I kind of like, again, this is another one of those situations where this could have been a decent movie, having an adaptation of, and could have easily handled the rights issues associated with making this film, of doing the plot of Casino Royale without the character of James Bond.
Yeah.
Having the idea of Vesper Lynd being independently wealthy because of her stock market thing, having the main character not be James Bond, but be this Baccarat expert who's sort of like drawn into this world of corporate espionage.
Yeah.
That's a great idea for how to do the plot of Casino Royale without all of the MI6 SMERSH bullshit attached to it.
No, there's a story in there.
But, they didn't do that.
I should also point out, I should have pointed this out earlier in my review, I find Bond films boring as fuck in general.
Okay. How many of them have you seen?
I have seen almost all of the modern ones, almost all of the Daniel Craig ones. And I enjoy those a bit more because, like I said, it's modern filmmaking. It's more easily digestible.
Those are the least boring ones.
Yeah, so I don't love them, but they're okay. I can sit through them.
The Daniel Craig ones.
The Daniel Craig ones. And I've seen...
And older action movies from England and or America are just not your bag in general.
No, and I
tend to like more stuff with like actual action, like more nonstop action, and Bond
more
movies,
like actual physical prowess, like a martial skill.
Right, more the Bond movies is more like, we're skiing and now we're doing a complicated jump with a car and stuff like that.
But I think the only classic Bond movie I've watched front to back, I've tried to get through others, like when they show them on TV, because I was a movie nerd from a young age, and I was like, I need to watch James Bond. James Bond is iconic.
You're interested in film history, and James Bond is a very significant part of that.
The only one I've been able to get through is Goldfinger, and I did that as research for a writing project I was working on. Mm-hmm. The rest of them, I just find them boring as shit.
Did you like Goldfinger?
It was okay. It was fine.
Yeah.
But again, like if I hadn't been watching that because I was writing a parody at the time called Copper Taint.
Nice.
Then I probably would not have finished it.
Gotcha. So
a James Bond parody is not necessarily up my alley, especially if they're going to embrace that boring aspect.
Sure. I find... obviously, I said I was a big Bond fan. I understand if you say I find the Bond movies boring, and unless you're talking about the Daniel Craig films, I immediately understand what you're talking about. Yeah. I don't find any of them boring.
That's fine.
I think they're all great, and I enjoy like 95% of most of them.
There are
definitely ones that I don't like, including Goldfinger,
really?
Which is weird because that's the one that everyone likes.
Yeah, but that's like the most famous one.
I can't get beyond the plot, the incredibly vital plot point of him raping a lesbian into being straight.
I don't recall that.
Pussy Galore is a lesbian.
Hence why she's named after her favorite thing to eat.
Her favorite thing to eat, yes, her favorite food. And he is being taken to a cell. Like, she's supposed to, like, entertain him. She takes him off somewhere to just, like, chat. And he like, gets her into a barn and just, like, throws her into the hay. They literally have a fight scene played over romantic music. And then he, like...
Why two birds suddenly appear.
He puts her in, like, an arm bar and then just, like, fucks her straight. And this is a plot point from the book that they kept and they put into the movie.
Well, that definitely sounds like Ian Fleming's writing.
It does sound like Ian Fleming's writing, and it sounds like something Sean Connery probably believed was real when he was alive. There's a lot of other stuff in the movie that I'm not a fan of. The best thing about Goldfinger, for me personally, is it has the best Bond car, which I feel vindicated by because they brought it back in the Daniel Craig era, and he he used that same car for 3 of the movies.
Oh, fun.
The Aston Martin DB5, my favorite car ever. It's just the coolest.
Sure. And you're a big gearhead.
Big gearhead, yeah. No, just literally. So
you
literally,
if I asked you to, I will not.
Right.
But if I asked you to, you could name 3 other types of cars.
Right. My wife's brother is a big gearhead.
Yeah.
And he will just, like, talk cars forever.
Oh,
and
that sounds terrible.
I know nothing about cars at all. So whenever he talks about cars, he'll say all this stuff to me, and I'll be like, Aston Martin DB5, and that's all I can say. That's literally... Because, like, any other thing you say, Batmobile, like, what is that? That's nothing.
Oscar Mayer Wienermobile.
The only reason I know Aston Martin DB5, like, is the actual name, is because in my head, I have Q saying, this is the Aston Martin DB5. So, like, that's in my DNA, is him saying that line. So, and that's the only car I know. That's the only thing I can say, ever. Even in Magnum P.I., he only says Ferrari. I don't know what kind of Ferrari that is.
So... Peter Sellers gets recruited.
And
goes to MI6 headquarters.
Sent to James Bond school, as they say.
Which is apparently below Harrods, although we do not get an establishing shot for this joke.
Because Peter Sellers walked off the set mid-scene for this.
You could still fucking just get a shot of Harrods.
Right, just get a shot of Harrods.
Like, that's all you need, and then
yes.
Peter Sellers can say whatever the fuck he says. Harrods has everything, or whatever the fuck.
Right, so there's this bit, basically I'm not even going to talk about what happens in the next scene, because this scene...
It's full of gags that don't work.
Have you seen a James Bond movie? Have you seen the scene that is in literally every... Well, not literally, because the Daniel Craig era mostly got away... abandon this trope, but in almost every James Bond movie where Bond goes to Q's lab and there's a bunch of sight gags of them walking by people testing out other ridiculous gadgets before they get to the ridiculous gadgets he uses.
Yeah.
Literally the exact same scene. There are no new jokes. It's all the same jokes that Bond was already making about itself. This is the problem. Austin Powers kind of works. I'm not a big fan of those movies, but, like, I know that
he doesn't make you horny, baby.
He doesn't make me horny, baby. But there have been a lot of James Bond parodies, and they're usually famously bad. Mm-hmm. And I think that part of the reason why is that the James Bond series is already self-parody. Bond suddenly brings up the Mata Hari thing again, and he says, I had a daughter with Mata Hari whose name is Mata Bond.
Of course. That's how naming children works.
And so he goes to recruit her to infiltrate the ranks of the evil lady spies that they've been facing. I guess, for whatever reason, Cooper Bond is no longer in this movie, so it's a different plan now. We're going to get a sexy lady spy of our own to infiltrate the other sexy lady spies. Again, I just acknowledge the fact that gay people exist, and this whole plot goes away.
Yeah.
But they meet Mata Bond in an elaborate...
I love this sequence.
Beautifully shot...
There's such... Even though
dance number.
Even though there are 6 different directors working on this,
yes,
there's consistently a good eye at work.
You know how we were talking about Hackers, and we said that if nothing else, Hackers is this great time capsule of the 90s?
Yeah.
I would say the exact same thing about this movie about the 60s.
Yeah.
This movie is the 60s somehow burned onto celluloid. And part of it is, like, these incredible images that they capture.
Yeah.
These incredibly colorful images. And, of course, like, the constant racism in every frame. Including in this sequence where she's doing sort of like a...
but that was sort of Mata Hari's vibe, the sort of...
yeah. And I will say...
Indian appropriation. Not Native American, but... Asian Indian.
Yeah. Mata Hari, if you don't know, which I did not again, was Welsh. And came up with the name Matahari to pretend to be, I believe, Indonesian, because she knew that she could market her sexy dances more effectively if she called
it was foreign, exotic.
If it was like cultural exchange kind of thing, so she could get more high class people to spend more money on her shows.
There's a beautiful dance sequence with sheets, and it's wonderful.
It's beautiful.
It's.
I don't think the dancing from the lead from Mata Bond herself is very interesting, but like the backup dancers are doing incredible work, and it's just gorgeous.
It's fucking great. And David Niven Bond meets his daughter, and they're about to fuck.
Yeah,
they are so close to fucking. She seems good to go.
She's good to go. He's the one who's like. She actually says the Trump thing where she's like, "If you look, ma," she's doing all this like stuff, and then she comes in, and the gag is that she immediately speaks with a lower class accent. She's like, "Hello, Dad," which is great. But she comes in, and she's like, "If you weren't my father, I might give you a go," and it's like, that's gross. Stop that.
Yeah. And here's where I made the note. Oh God, we're only halfway through.
Mata Bond is asked to, like I said, join the Smersh organization and start studying at this ballet school for girls, which is secretly a school for teaching evil secret agent girls, which is also a plot point in John Wick 3.
Yeah, it is.
Which means that this is now in the same universe as John Wick 3. I have decided it is now canon.
Before we move on to the Berlin stuff.
Well, yeah, no, I want to, before we get to the Berlin, well, first, what is the bit that you're
There's a good gag where, as Niven and Mata Bond are talking, her manservant is there, and Niven is like,
can he speak English?
Is it okay to talk to him, talk in front of him? Does he speak English? And she goes, "Hey, Charlie, speak English?" No. That's a good gag.
It's just, well, all right, then. And they keep talking. That's a great gag.
It's a classic gag.
I actually noted that gag and was just going to jump over it, but I'm glad you mentioned it. Now, for me, the funniest joke in the movie, and also my favorite character in the movie, comes up in this bit, where they leave the building that they're in. Well, actually, they go to MI6 first, but then they leave that building, and Mata Bond, which is her actual in-canon name, Mata Bond. Anyway, Mata Bond is like, well, how am I going to get to Berlin? They say, we'll take a cab. She goes over to the cab. Bernard Cribbins.
I don't know who that is.
Is the cab driver. Wilfred Mott from Doctor Who.
Oh, I love Wilf.
Best character in the movie, Bernard Cribbins. Bernard Cribbins is incredible in everything, and he is good here too. She goes up and she says to the cab, going to Berlin? West Berlin or East Berlin? West Berlin. That's all right then. And they drive all the way to Berlin, and they stop. And in one, and Bernard Cribbins turns and is like, "All right, that'd be £482, 15 and 9 pence." Best thing ever. Best ever moment in anything. If this is not a movie that the film presents us with, like the other movies we've talked about, but if the entire movie were Bernard Cribbins as a no-nonsense cab driver, just getting kind of like drawn into this North by Northwest style, best movie ever made.
Yeah.
Best movie ever made.
So they go to West Berlin, and it's located exactly on the border of West and East Berlin.
So Mata Bond enters into the West Berlin ballet school, which is secretly the spy school, which is apparently
it's not necessarily a Smersh spy school because they provide spies to Russia, to America.
That's right. They do say that. But this is supposed to get her in with Smersh is the point. And this is apparently the school that Matahari also trained at.
Now,
but when she goes in,
the best visual gag in the movie is it's all stylized like Dr. Caligari.
German expressionism.
Yes.
I didn't laugh.
No, I didn't laugh either, but it was great production design.
Funny to me, but like it completely knocked me out. I love German expressionism. Dr. Caligari is one of the coolest looking movies ever made.
I need to watch it. I need to watch it in total.
I will be honest, like the movie itself is fine, but like the style of it is wow. And what the fuck?
It's
hard to spend so much money on this entirely pointless gag that's not funny.
Yeah, and it's just
I want to look at the set forever.
It's so fucking gorgeous, and it's hard to describe It's all weird angles, sort of like... It's not in black and white, but the set is black and white, sort of.
If you're listening to us now, Google image the cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Look at any of the pictures. That's what the set looks like. Like, or even better, like, if maybe you're not a silent movie fan, maybe you've seen the music video for Rob Zombie's Living Dead Girl, which intentionally evokes that movie. Same thing. Like, it's that sort of German expressionist, no right angles are allowed kind of style. The style that Tim Burton is very famous for aping in his early work.
But despite the great production design of the sequence, it's literally just a retread of the earlier Peter Sellers sequence where he's going through MI6 headquarters. This is the same thing. They're leading her around.
Yes.
There's a weird robot man named Polo.
Yeah, the two people there are Mata Hari's old teacher, Frau Hoffner, and her cyborg toady, Polo, who is just very horny all the time.
Like most cyborgs are.
Like most cyborgs, yeah.
Have you... RoboCop.
RoboCop.
So horny.
Horniest dude. It's revealed...
Your move, dick.
It's revealed that both Peter Lorre and Bela Lugosi were international spies, which isn't funny.
No.
And is just kind of racist, because the only point of that joke is that, hey, two famous foreign people.
Yeah.
So that made me angry.
We, as they're touring the Institute, we see a karate class, which is for some reason in fast motion.
Yes, we see a karate class that's in fast motion. The one that really knocked me out was right before that, they go into a coding room where they're teaching people to code, and it's all a bunch of...
Not coding like computer coding, but coding like cryptography.
Spies, yeah, like sending different kinds of codes and messages and everything. And it's just a bunch of women in red and white...
60 sort of mini dresses.
60 sort of mini dresses with... like 60s hairstyles, and everything in the room is red and white, and they're all yelling over each other. And I can't describe with words how crazy it is.
Yeah.
It's just...
And again, it's like a 10-second shot.
It's a 10-second shot, just like the self-defense class. And I'm looking at all this shit, and in between all of this, it's all the German expressionist shit. I felt like I was losing my mind.
But
I felt like I was losing my mind.
But again, like, we've watched several movies where it's felt like we were losing our mind while we're watching it. Mm-hmm. And they're enjoyable.
Yes.
Unlike this, where it's like, I wish I were enjoying this, because this is so fucking weird.
Sure. Yeah. No, this is more like...
This is appreciation, not enjoyment.
Yeah. We've mentioned several times that even though we were kind of down on it, or I was kind of down on it in our first episode talking about... Not in our first episode about it, talking about Meet the Hollowheads, that we have only grown an appreciation of that movie. And depending on which episode comes out first, I don't know if Freeway is going to come out before this episode or not. It should. Whenever you listen to that episode, I'm kind of down on that movie. I'm kind of down on Machine Girl and those episodes. Those movies have only grown in my memory as being just great fun. This movie... No, I don't foresee me like growing an appreciation in this movie over time.
No, because there's so little meat here.
There's so little meat.
With Freeway, there's a lot of thematic stuff that you didn't necessarily
that we kind of had to parse it out in that episode. I feel like for me to really appreciate it,
because you were not as versed in like the psychology of eating disorders and stuff like that.
And then Machine Girl, you
had a different idea of what the tone was.
I had a different idea of what the tone was, and I had also just been in a bad mood when I watched it. And then we talked about it, and I was like, "This is the best movie ever."
Yeah.
Meet the Hollowheads. Even when I was watching it, and even when I was like, "I don't know if I like this," you still have. John Glover. You still have
Mr. Krabnick.
Mr. Krabnick, one of the greatest cinematic characters of all time. This is just like crazy shit.
Yeah,
crazy shit. But there's no substance there.
Yeah,
it's crazy air just in your face. There's this weird joke. They go into Mata Hari's old room where she's going to stay, and there's a big bed. She's like, "What was such a big bed?" And Polo says, "Well, the German army was large in those days," which I thought was inappropriate. Mata Bond learns from Polo that Le Chiffre is connected to the spy school. He is deep in debt because he was using Smersh funds to finance his gambling addiction.
Gotcha.
And so he is selling some priceless artwork. at auction in the school in order to get back the money and be able to pay back Smirsh, because obviously they are going to kill him. They're a terrorist organization. So now, this is the scene I was talking about, where we finally have the motivation for why they need to bankrupt Lashif in the casino. Way too late, because we already know that mission is going on in another part of this movie somewhere, in the vast universe that this movie encompasses.
So this is the part of the movie where they're having the auction of the blackmail material, correct?
Yes. In another legitimately funny gag, the artwork that they keep referring to is actually just blackmail photographs that they're selling off. There is a horribly unfunny and racist bit involving the leaders of all these different militaries from around the world.
Russia, China, America, and Britain. And it's like, I thought it's a unfunny gag to begin with, because some of the parties are like, we'll stand up when we bid, we'll sit down when we bid, and I expected this crazy physical gag where everyone's rising and falling.
They just drop it immediately after they say it. The only joke that comes out of that scene is that after they all say that, the British people say, we'll just go with whatever anyone wants to do.
We'll do both.
You know what British people be like? They be like polite and stuff, and they drink tea. The only thing that I found significant about this is that the main Chinese general is played by Burt Kwok, who famously played Kato in the Pink Panther movies, and I think he's another actor who is just really funny no matter what he's doing. And the auctioneer himself is played by Vladek Shaybal, who is a...
Vladek Shaved Balls?
Shaybal. He may have shaved balls, I don't know.
I hope he does.
I hope he does. But he was a very underrated Bond villain in the main Bond film series in From Russia with Love.
Played Russia.
He played Russia, and there was another actor playing Love, and most people remember Love, but then no one remembers Russia's movie. No. But yeah, he was...
And that's why Putin's so angry.
That's why Putin is so angry. But I really liked his character in that movie, so it was kind of cool for me to see him here. Yeah. But anyway, it turns out that part of my dream for the Bernard Cribbins spy film was correct. Bernard Cribbins was a secret spy all along.
Oh.
He comes in, Mata Bond is listening in on this auction, and he tells Mata that she needs to sabotage this auction. So she steals the blackmail and instead starts broadcasting war footage on the screen they were using to check the photos.
We get a line because these are all military men doing the bidding.
They immediately get a Pavlovian response to the war footage where they all immediately imagine that a war is really going on and start running around in circles trying to contact their governments.
And possibly my favorite line of the film, one of the soldiers just goes, "Hey, war!" And it gets a little madcap. She escapes. Yeah. The Mata Bond sequence, aside from the opening sequence directed by John Huston, the Mata Bond sequence is probably my favorite. It's the most visually interesting.
It is, yeah. I understand that. I didn't like it, but the visuals were quite good.
And it felt more fun than a lot of the rest of the film. Like, I was actually sort of engaged.
My biggest problem with it is that it has a fun tone to it, where, like, they're really trying to make it fun and engaging. There are no actual jokes. They keep, like, saying things as if they are jokes. Yeah. But there are no jokes.
Well, that's a problem with a lot of the film.
And I'm like, desperately looking for something to laugh at, and there was nothing.
But even though I wasn't laughing, I just still found, like, the
visuals are incredible. It's not like there won't be crazy visuals going forward, but I will say some of my favorite visuals in the movie are in here. I want to live on that German Expressionist set.
Oh my God.
I want to live on it. I wrote down, a whole bunch of crazy shit happens. This is frankly exhausting to try and take notes on.
Yeah. It's fair. It's fair. And from here on out, my notes get very sparse.
Sure. So she escapes. The auctioneer calls Lashif.
Oh, yeah.
We cut to Orson Welles, and immediately Orson Welles is the drunkest I have ever seen him outside of that Peas commercial, that famous Peas. No, not Peas. What's the commercial?
No, it's Peas.
The Peas is the one where he's like, "I'll go down on you." What's the one where it's...
Isn't it like Fish?
It's Fish commercial or something where he's being filmed, and they're like, "Action, Orson." He's like, "Whoa, fish!" Like
the bounty of the sea.
Yeah, outside of that commercial, this is the drunkest Orson Welles you will ever see.
See, I'm a famous drunk.
Okay.
But I did not get drunk vibes from Orson Welles. Although it did seem like he was having a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Which is probably associated.
Right, yeah.
And also because it seems like they just... If Orson Welles said he wanted to do it in this film, they would let him.
Oh, fuck yeah. No, yeah. Orson Welles...
But here we get the other time I laughed out loud during this movie is the auctioneer is calling Lashif, telling him about his fuck up.
Yes.
And Lashif's response is to blow up the phone booth.
It's like, dear, and he pushes a button. The phone booth blows up. The phone booth happens to be attached to the Berlin Wall. So the Berlin Wall collapses, and a bunch of people just start rushing through it, cheering about the end of the communist government.
And also,
what a timely joke.
The set for the border of East and West Berlin is fucking beautiful. Like, it's a great set because it has both sides on it. The camera goes over the wall.
Again,
it's fucking great.
This segment of the movie is the most visually beautiful segment of the film.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we cut back to just a minute. I'm going to take a quick drink because Adderall gives you dry mouth.
Here, I'll spit in your mouth.
Yeah, cool. Delicious. So Lashif's boss, Smirsh's Dr. Noah, as we said.
Hilarious joke.
So funny. We're now an hour and 22 minutes into the movie, by the way.
And we still have about an hour to go.
Yeah. And finally, the adaptation of Casino Royale
begins.
Just begins. We had the setup for it earlier. This is the actual plot is now about to happen.
We go back to Evelyn Tremble,
who is now James Bond. He re-enters the story by punching out a customs agent when he enters France for no reason.
This?
It is such a non sequitur that the movie feels the need to cut to Niven for just 2 seconds to have Niven to go like, why did he do that? And then it cuts back to Sellers.
No, it's even dumber.
Okay.
Because Niven is like, well, he must have had a reason for doing that.
Right, yeah. It just says he must have had a reason.
We never learned that reason, but it's just like, okay. Loved it. I loved it when he just punched out the customs agent.
Again, yeah. No, again, it's like Sellers made so little of the movie he was going to be in before he walked off set. They literally had to pick up the pieces. There are scenes in this movie that are just that were outtakes that he was just fucking around and they had the camera on. They're like, well, I guess we have to make this part of the movie now. We'll get to those. But yeah, so we then cut back to the scene that started the movie of Bond and Mathis meeting. They're now talking about vague stuff that doesn't seem to go anywhere, but they're in a car wash run by extremely horny attendants molesting their car while they talk. I don't
remember this part.
That happened. It was crazy.
But he eventually reconnects with Vesperlin.
Yes, he does.
Now, here's where I think the movie makes a big misstep. Because one of the conceits of the movie is that there are multiple people named James Bond 007.
Yes.
Including Vesperlin and Evelyn Tremble.
Yeah, Vesperlin is now James Bond as well.
This would be so much funnier if they stuck with that conceit and only called each other James Bond.
Yeah, but they keep going back and forth.
Yeah, it's like, or if there could be so much funny shit where it's like, I'm talking about James Bond. Who?
Right, yes.
Or it's like,
which one?
Or everyone automatically understands what James Bond everyone's talking about, except for maybe one person who's like, just does not get it. And David Niven is screaming at them, James Bond 007. They're like, Evelyn? No! James Bond 007.
He goes up to Ursula Andress and he's like, I'm looking for Bond. And she's like, which one? Bond? And she's like, who? Bond, or Bond? And he's like, Bond. He's like, he's over there.
So much comedy could be mined.
And meanwhile, Peter Sellers is in the corner just being like, what the fuck are you talking about? That would have been incredible.
Yeah.
And I even like...
it's almost like it's easier to write a movie in retrospect.
Yes, we are frauds, aren't we? But... there's a whole bit with some lady named Miss Goodthighs.
Yeah, it's not important.
It's not important.
Although
it's just an excuse for them to put a dream sequence in there so they can put more Peter Sellers outtakes in there. One that they repeat repeatedly throughout the movie is Peter Sellers playing Ursula Andress like a piano, which is again apparently just Peter Sellers fucking around on the set.
Sure, he just wanted to touch a pretty lady.
Yeah.
Good Thighs also, let's make a joke about Bond girl names.
Which again, there are only maybe 3 Bond girls in the whole franchise who have joke names, but fuck it.
And Good Thighs is played by Jacqueline Bisset.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of very beautiful women in this movie. And again,
I think Miss Good Thighs is my favorite.
Fair enough. Again, 60s hot, one of the hottest hots.
Yeah, so, we've talked about this off air.
It's great. This movie's great for that.
We get the first instance of the insane Bond song.
Oh, God, yes, that's right. The dream sequence that he has when he's drugged takes is set to the title song for the movie, the Casino Royale song.
Which sounds like someone is fucking making it up as they go. They're like...
Yeah. It sounds like a song that they would have made up on Whose Line Is It Anyway during one of their song games.
James Bond going to the casino, gonna play some cards.
It's more John's MS Bond, I can see in the Royale.
Yeah, it's almost like an old-timey like megaphone singer.
It almost sounds like they treated it to make it sound like it's coming out of the world's oldest Victrola.
It's like the Edison phonograph.
Exactly.
It's on a wax cylinder.
It's on a wax cylinder playing. It's like, Casino Royale. It only plays during this one.
James Bond, he's gonna kiss a lady.
It's only like played during this one bit, and then at the very end of the movie. And it's it is... Weirdly, because it's so strange, it's stuck in my head way more than the actual Oscar-winning song.
Yeah.
Not Oscar-winning, Oscar-nominated song.
No, Look of Love is not a great song.
Really? Okay. I don't remember it.
Well, you didn't remember it because it's not particularly memorable. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like Dusty Springfield sings it. I love Dusty Springfield.
I love Dusty Springfield.
And I like Burt Bacharach.
Sure.
As a songwriter.
Sure.
But yeah, no, this song is way more insane and memorable because it's...
Again, I like the incidental music in this movie a lot. It's this very specific 60s sort of jaunty, almost Parisian kind of sound that I really enjoy. But my biggest problem with the score is just that much like everything else, it's used so haphazardly in such random places. It kind of reminds me of the score for The Third Man.
I still have yet to see The Third Man.
I like the score for The Third Man if I were listening to it on its own.
Yeah.
Much like I like the score for this movie. But in The Third Man, it feels inappropriate and out of place.
Then we see Le Chiffre.
He's at the baccarat table acting totally unhinged.
He's doing magic.
He's doing magic. Orson Welles said he would do the movie if they let him do his magic act. This both makes and breaks the movie at the same time.
No, it's fucking wonderful. I wish this was in the Daniel Craig Casino Royale. I wish
Mads Mikkelsen just like, is this your card?
Mads Mikkelsen being like, oh, you need a handkerchief? How about several? It's so fucking insane that this was Orson Welles' demand. Like, God. And it's also insane because he's like, I want to do magic. Mm-hmm. But as we've talked about off air, talking about the movie
Now You See Me. When people do magic in movies, they're not doing actual magic tricks. They're doing fake shit that you could not do in real life. Mm-hmm. Where the impressive thing about magic is the illusion, it's the trickery. Exactly.
In movies, you can just do whatever the fuck. So Orson Welles isn't doing real magic aside from like a scarf trick.
Mm-hmm. But apparently, like, magic was a passion of his. In the documentary F for Fake, he does a lot of magic.
I'm sure he had a lot of dumb hobbies.
This is famously from the portion of Orson Welles' life, like, where he had basically decided to give up. We weren't quite at the 1980s, fine, I'll do a voice in Transformers, the movie Orson Welles. We know that he definitely demanded the magic tricks. I also believe that he demanded to be surrounded by beautiful women at all times, because even though this movie is chock full of beautiful women, whenever the camera's on him, there's just a huge mob of supermodels surrounding him. And I also think he demanded to be able to do the movie absolutely off his ass drunk. Yeah, he's hypnoptizing people.
He gives one of my favorite performances. Again, he seems to be having so much goddamn fun.
He is the only person in this movie having fun. Apparently the making of this movie was miserable for everyone involved. I think the only person who that does not apply to is Orson Welles, who does not give a shit.
You're making a movie about a casino. I know what casinos need. Magic.
So anyway, yeah, he levitates a woman, makes her disappear, hypnotizes her with a lighting change. It's insane. Sellers enters the club and is shown Le Chiffre through a one-way mirror. Uses infrared glasses he realizes that Le Chiffre is using infrared glasses to see through the cards, not how infrared works.
Nope.
But point is, he's cheating. Sellers goes to the table, they switch out Orson Welles' glasses. Now, if you do watch this movie, something to keep an eye on is how many shots Sellers and Welles are in together.
0.
Almost none. I think there might be an establishing shot of Sellers walking up to the table.
It would not surprise me if that was a body double.
Oh, it may have
shot
been
from behind.
So, okay, I didn't remember that. But so
I think it was.
Almost none, maybe none of the shots they are in together. And this is because Sellers would not be on set, refused to be on set at the same time as Orson Welles. There could be many reasons.
Yes.
The famous reason is that Princess Margaret was going to visit the set, and Sellers made a big to-do about, oh, I know Princess Margaret, before she showed up. When she did show up, she passed right by him, went right to Welles, and was like, oh my God, God of cinema, Orson Welles. And Sellers was...
Yes, the monarchy, I love it.
And Sellers was so pissed off, which makes this one of the few celebrity feuds of the many celebrity feuds that Orson Welles was involved with over the course of his life that wasn't really his fault.
Do you think Orson Welles really wanted to be friends with Peter Sellers? Do you think he was like...
It was just really sad for him.
That's why he was drinking. He was drinking because his dream best friend didn't want to be besties with him.
I read recently, this just came up for no reason. I just recently saw the movie Bedknobs and Broomsticks for the first time. Apparently, one of the only actors who could get Sellers to behave on set, any set, because Sellers acted like this all the time. He's a fucking asshole. But one of the only actors who could ever get Sellers to behave just by being in the room with him was David Tomlinson.
I thought you were going to say Angela Lansbury.
Oh, I mean, I would buy that. But, like, no, it was David Tomlinson who played Mr. Banks in the...
Mary Poppins.
In Mary Poppins. Was just... Apparently, Peter Sellers just respected the hell out of him, and whenever he was on set for one of his movies, he fucking shaped up. For some reason, I don't know. He wouldn't even shape up for Blake Edwards, who he claimed to be friends with.
Le Chiffre and Evelyn Tremble played Baccarat.
Yes.
I don't know jack shit about Baccarat.
It's really fun. I don't know jack shit about Baccarat either. And it's funny because in the book, Casino Royale, Ian Fleming goes on for far too fucking long describing how Baccarat works because he assumes that the audience doesn't know.
Yeah.
It does kind of ruin the narrative structure of the book, however, because he has to explain all the rules of Baccarat. In the 2006 movie, I haven't seen the 50s one because why would I watch that?
It's Texas Hold'em.
Right, because he's American. But in the 2006 one, they have that character of Lieutenant Mathis with Vesper off to the side explaining in as simple as possible terms what all of the card moves mean as Bond is making them. And it really works.
Yeah.
In this movie, they just have a dubbed-in voice of a lady off-screen who yells, "He won! He lost!" every time they play the game.
And again, cards are being turned over, and
right.
we're like, and we're being told that someone wins or loses.
He lost!
Just like, it's mildly interesting. Like, I was sort of engaged, but at the same time, it's like, I don't fucking know what's going on, so I don't care.
Yeah. Knowing how much Sellers hated Welles makes it even funnier when Le Chiffre starts pulling out more magic tricks in between their games, and it keeps cutting back to Sellers, and, like, Sellers is a good actor, but I don't know. Maybe it's just because I know the backstory, but there's something about Sellers. He says the line, is that it? Is that it? And it just looks like his skull is about to burst out of his face with rage. At one point, he says, is that it? Is that it? And then it cuts back to Welles, and Welles does yet another trick where he pulls a bunch of
scarves.
He pulls a bunch of, well, they're not just he does.
He turns them into flags,
but they're international flags, and he's like, such animosity. Shouldn't we all be living in brotherhood? And as he does that, all of the people behind him pull out firecrackers, and lenses and filters start being draped across the camera so that the screen is flashing different colors. I don't have epilepsy, but I almost had a fit watching this. And then again, it cuts back to Sellers, and Sellers is applauding, looking like he's about to jump across the table and just strangle Welles with those scarves. It's the only scene in this comedy that is funny unintentionally.
Yes.
But it is very funny.
But Tremble ends up winning.
Yes. He loses all of his money and then inexplicably wins all of it back on one hand.
Using the Tremble method, which I don't don't know why it didn't work for him on the first two hands.
Fucking know what any of this is. But anyway, I wrote down, I cannot express how stoned Orson Welles looks in this scene. Oh, another thing about Sellers. The director of this segment was Joseph McGrath, and apparently Sellers fully punched the guy out because the guy dared to tell Sellers that he was being unprofessional. And Sellers didn't answer, just punch the guy out.
Something we didn't mention before, when we're talking about people who did a pass on this script.
Yes.
Joseph Heller contributed stuff. So did Terry Southern. Joseph Heller wrote Catch-22.
Okay. I don't know much about that, but I know that it's famous.
It's a famous anti-war satire.
Right, okay.
Kind of repetitive. I enjoyed it well enough. Terry Southern, we actually talked about one of his works off air, Magic Christian.
Oh, yeah.
Terry Southern was a big writer in the 60s and 70s.
Okay, yeah. Sellers keeps making these horribly racist jokes. There's so much racism in this movie. It's very distracting.
But Le Chiffre goes off, and in an inexplicable moment that has a sort of funny Mel Brooks gag, Sellers wants to follow him, and he says to a man, "Follow that car."
Wait. First, before that, when Wells leaves, he kidnaps Vesper Lind on the way out. That's why Sellers says, follow that car to a cab driver, and the cab driver leaves his car behind and just runs after it.
That's a funny gag.
It is a funny gag. Sellers did the exact same gag in one of the Pink Panther movies.
Oh, really?
So they're just ripping off their own shit.
But after that, Sellers gets into
within
race
the same
car.
shot, he gets into a race car, makes some sort of weird, dumb joke, and drives off. This is also a scene that was not in the movie. This whole bit is just an outtake.
Well, it makes sense because what follows next is a complete non sequitur where suddenly Evelyn Tremble has been captured by Le Chiffre.
Yes.
And is now being drugged and has a psycho freak out.
Well, and he drives after them and then just cut. He's in Le Chiffre's power. There's a weird bit where he says, "Oh no, the bottom of my chair's been cut out," which is an weird inside joke because in the book, all this happens. Le Chiffre captures Bond and he's like, "Give me the check for the money that you won. I need that money." And Bond says no, so he cuts out the bottom of the wicker chair Bond is in and uses a club to beat Bond's testicles.
Oh.
Which only the 2006 movie has ever been brave enough to put that scene in an actual movie.
Yeah, brave is the right word.
Well, yeah, because that seems weird for
stunning
a studio
and powerful. It really makes you think.
You do have Daniel Craig telling Mads Mikkelsen, "Now I'm going to tell everyone that you've been itching my balls," which is, a pretty great moment in cinema. They just sort of briefly reference that his chair doesn't have a bottom in it, and Orson Welles is like, "Oh, hey, sorry, design flaw." And then Peter Sellers gets up, and then he's not even drugged. Orson Welles has a machine that somehow causes Peter Sellers to have psychotropic visions. First of a weird jigsaw version of Le Chiffre asking for the check. That doesn't work. So then he shows him a bunch of pretty ladies. Then he's suddenly in a white, foggy void.
The pipers come back.
A bunch of pipers show up. It's the Scottish thing from earlier in the film comes back.
Because there's a bit during the McTerry Castle part where they talk about this the Phantom Piper that shows up.
Right, that is a callback. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about the whole McTerry shit.
Every time a McTerry is about to die, a Piper shows up, and it's been the same Piper for hundreds of years, and now he's having visions of these Pipers.
Of all these Pipers, Peter O'Toole runs up to him and says, "Are you Peter O'Toole?" No, he says, "Are you Richard Burton?" Peter Sellers says, "No, I'm Peter O'Toole." Peter O'Toole says, "You're the finest man who ever lived," to Peter O'Toole, apparently.
This must have been hilarious in 1967.
I don't think so. Peter O'Toole gives one of Peter O'Toole's tassels on a quick hand job, and then they part ways. I feel crazy.
No, and here's the fucking upsetting thing: is this all is crazy?
Yes,
it's just boring.
Right.
Somehow it takes effort to make a psychotropic freakout boring.
Right.
Especially one that involves Highland Pipers.
Right. And then my notes literally jumped away from the scene because they didn't want to talk about it.
Then Vesper Lynn shows up.
Vesper Lynn shows up with a trick bagpipes that are actually a machine gun, which is, again, an actual gag in one of the Bond movies.
Oh, is it?
It's actually, I think, in one of the Pierce Brosnan movies, so after this movie, but still.
All I could think of was Desperado and El Mariachi.
Oh, okay. No, wait, no. It's one of the Roger Moore films.
That makes more sense.
You don't know it's the Q scene yet. He walks up and one of them, a guy just playing a bagpipe. He takes one of the bagpipes, uses as a machine gun, and he takes another part of the bagpipe and uses that as a flamethrower. So it's even better than this guy.
Yeah.
She uses the machine guns to kill all of the other Scottish people.
And then because Peter Sellers walked out
off
at
the
this
set.
point,
She says, never trust a rich spy, Tremble, and she kills him.
Off screen, because he walked off the set. Now, famously, at the end of the book of Casino Royale, Vesper Lynd is revealed to be a double agent, and to have not betrayed Bond. She never actually betrays Bond, but at least have been in the position to betray him, and because of her love for him, she didn't. And again, that is adapted in the 2006 movie. This is a weird take on that version of that. Yeah.
But we have aside from the fact that Vesper Lynd, I guess, comes back later a little bit to have something of a thing. This is the end of the part of the movie that is adapting the book at all.
Yeah.
If you came here for, how did this movie handle the source material? You can click off. This is it. That's the end of that. This is the end of the book. And we're gonna go back to whatever the hell the rest of this movie's story is now.
The movie is already off the fucking rails, but it just becomes pure insanity at this point.
We are an hour and 45 minutes into the movie. The plot of the book that this was adapted is over. That means that out of this 2 hour and 11-minute movie, the story from the book took roughly 15 minutes, which is shorter than the version of it that was on TV in the 50s. But Le Chiffre is killed. He's no longer the villain of the movie.
No.
Le Chiffre is killed by a man who was in his TV and then crashed out of the screen of his TV and shot him in the brain.
In the head. Yeah.
Because, fuck. Anyway.
Because we ran out of Mad Dog to feed Orson Welles.
So going back to the plot of this movie, Mata Bond is kidnapped by a flying saucer. David Niven, another actually really funny bit. David Niven has a complete non-reaction to this.
Yeah, he's not surprised.
Not surprised, but he's like, she was kidnapped by a flying saucer, don't worry, I know exactly what to do. Mimi re-enters the movie very briefly to let Niven Bond know.
Still as a nun.
Still know.
He gives him a hot tip.
She says, you'll find Mata Bond at Casino Royale.
At Casino Royale, you're my pal, I'm your pal.
They find out that Smirch headquarters is underneath Casino Royale. It was there the whole time, which means that Le Chiffre was doing a horrible job of hiding his bad debt from Dr. Noah. But they get to the casino, and they break into the headquarters of Smirch, which, talking about psychedelic sets, is just crazy.
It's crazy. It spins.
It looks like, honestly, it could be a set for one of the other planar realities they visit in The Good Place. But Dr. Noah, who we've heard we haven't seen Dr. Noah.
There's so little mention of Dr. Noah. He appears so little.
But he's essentially taking the part of the Blofeld character from the main series, where you don't really see his face, but you hear this very impressive voice talking about "we must destroy Bond now," that sort of thing.
And it's revealed to be
they lead him right to Dr. Noah's base, and it turns out that Dr. Noah is secretly Jimmy Bond.
Boo, Woody Allen.
Yes, turns out Woody Allen is a total creep, and he's also playing the villain of this movie, but
And here's more so than the Peter Sellers and Orson Welles not being on camera together. It seems like Woody Allen and David Niven were never on set together.
They definitely are. There's they don't interact, they don't touch each other.
No,
but they're definitely in some of the same shots.
But it's still so oddly segregated the way that the movie is shot.
The weirdest part of it is that we are 15 minutes from the end. They are introducing so much plot right at the end here. But Jimmy Bond, I'm going to try and get through it as quickly as possible. I'm sorry, guys.
It's okay.
I'm not even apologizing to you. I'm apologizing to the audience. Jimmy Bond has always had a hero worship of his Uncle James.
To the point where he can't even speak in front of him.
And that's kind of where I think you're getting the idea that they weren't on the set. Because, why else would Woody Allen not be talking? But I think it's actually like a legitimate gag they were trying to do.
Where Woody Allen has this nasally voice and the Dr. Noah voice is so deep and
right,
commanding.
and he's just not talking during the scene, but he like charades to them his evil plan, which is to replace the world leaders with robot duplicates.
Yes.
He's also going to replace Niven Bond with a robot duplicate. And he's also going to use a special kind of germ warfare that will kill off everyone taller than him, as well as make every woman in the world beautiful.
But there's also another pill.
But he also has another pill!
There's another pill that, when ingested, turns a person into an atomic bomb.
It's like a little shotgun shotgun shell with a bunch of different miniature atomic bombs in it that all go off concurrently, not concurrently, consecutively, and then eventually you turn into an atomic bomb yourself and blow up.
What they don't explain, but which is the premise of the gag, is that like every time there's no like timer for the atomic human bomb going off. It's just however much he hiccups. Which again is not part of the plot that he laid out.
No,
because
it's just that eventually someone's going to swallow this and they're going to hiccup and like smoke is going to come out of their mouth.
They have like 50 hiccups and then they explode.
But okay, so
Jimmy Bond ends up getting dosed with the pill.
Well, I want to. There's still some more stuff I want to touch on before we get to there. Dr. Noah gets Niven Bond and Moneypenny, I think, came with him. Take them away. He tells his men. He goes into a back room where a naked lady is strapped down. Again, so much.
I think it's Jacqueline Bisset. I think it's Good Thighs.
It is not. It is a new character. Is a completely new character that is now being introduced. She is also James Bond. She is another agent of MI6.
Detainer.
She's called in the credits the Detainer, but I don't think that she ever is called the Detainer in the rest of the movie.
No, she is not.
Yeah, so in the credits she's called the Detainer. I'm just going to call her James Bond, but she is naked and tied down in a scene that was put on the back of the VHS tape this movie was available in my local library. I never watched this movie, but I did look at that picture a lot.
But prevert.
Yes, played by Dahlia Lavi, who doesn't have a lot of time in this movie, but she is
strikingly beautiful.
She's very beautiful, but she's also like legitimately like really funny and good in this part. Just thought I would mention that. But it turns out Dr. Noah has always been obsessed with this particular 00 agent and has always wanted her to be in love with him. This entire plot is just a way for him to take her hostage and make her his queen in the after the apocalypse times that he will rule. We are now up to, by the way, 6 James Bond characters in this movie, so we have one for every director.
Sleepy Bond.
Yes.
Angry Bond.
Yes.
Grumpy Bond.
Right.
Sneezy Bond.
Yes. Lavi Bond successfully tricks Dr. Noah into letting her go, steals his atomic bomb pill.
Hold on, I want to do my impression of Sneezy Bond.
Go for it.
Sex!
For no reason whatsoever, Cooper Bond is suddenly in the movie again.
He's there again.
Koopy Bond.
Koopy Bond.
There's a whole bit where they hired an entire choir to hide in a section of the set that raises up with Woody Allen on top of it.
Oh,
and
I did
goes
enjoy
back
that
into
bit.
the set. It's so much money for so little time.
For literally a 3-second bit.
3-second bit. Lavi Bond successfully puts the bomb pill in Dr. Noah by getting him to drink it in a martini glass,
and then everything just goes to hell.
And
everything, like, it was off the rails. Now it's
literally the behind the scenes material that I've been able to glean say they didn't know how to end the movie, so they decided to do everything. So here's. As much as I'm going to go through this very fast. Bond and Moneypenny escape their cell. They find their way out by following Frankenstein's monster, played by David Prowse. David Prowse was originally hired to play Super Pooh, a superhero version of Winnie the Pooh.
During the psychotropic freakout.
Right, but they cut Super Pooh and decided to replace... But they didn't want to fire David Prowse, just like they didn't want to fire any of the people they'd hired to play James Bond.
Everyone on this movie was too nice.
Right, so they played he played Frankenstein monster apart. He played 2 other times with Peter Cushing. Lavi Bond leaves the main crew to escape via the ladies' room, but the rest of them don't want to go that way for some reason. The rest of the crew head to the main floor of the casino, where Niven Bond meets Andreas Bond, but Cooper Bond brings in a literal Old West cavalry to save the day.
Yes.
2 SEALs start fighting.
Yeah.
Moneypenny finds a button labeled laughing gas and hits it, causing the roulette wheel to fly into the air, shooting laughing gas and bubbles and firecrackers everywhere.
There's also a chimp in a wig.
A monkey with a wig. A dog wearing a collar labeled 007, so I guess the dog is also James Bond. That's 7 James Bonds. One of the SEALs is wearing a collar that also says James Bond. That's 8 James Bonds.
Nothing that we're seeing makes any fucking sense.
A bunch of Native Americans all jump out of a plane yelling Geronimo. Ha! The cowboys start shooting everyone with ping pong balls. I feel ill. The French Foreign Legion arrive. The Keystone Cops show up. The Native Americans have rocket arrows and started having a dance party.
A 60s dance party.
A 60s dance party.
Specifically, the joke is supposed to be that Native Americans are doing 60s
Yes,
dances.
isn't it funny that they're doing racist? Finally, mercifully, Dr. Noah blows up and everyone dies.
Hold on.
Yes.
I also want to give a little shout out to David Niven's fight sequence.
David Niven has a couple of fight scenes in this bit. After they break into Smirch, he has a couple of fight scenes.
It's well edited.
Little
he
fight
sells
scenes
it
here.
well.
He does a really good job, and I have not gotten a chance to see him fight in a lot of other things. He's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll give those props.
Listen, I know that we have the money and resources to do this.
Yes, of course.
Let's clone David Niven. Multiple times. Let's say 600 times.
Right.
Battle Royale fight to the death.
You know who I think would win that?
David Niven?
Yeah.
That's who my money's on.
So, they all die.
They all blow up, which is a great ending.
That is a great ending
That's
for
a great fucking ending.
any movie, really. They all go to heaven.
Any movie where Woody Allen explodes.
Yeah, any movie where Woody Allen... two recordings in a row, we've had people that I don't care for die.
Yeah.
And I like that. I would like to continue that trend. We've had Woody Allen this week, Vincent Gallo the other time. I would like to keep watching people I hate die.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't think you'll recognize anyone in our next film, Tag. But a lot of people die.
All right. But yeah, so they all go to heaven. There's a final bit of them all as angels. Like we said, it was in the opening titles.
Sequence where we see them all as angels and we get...
The song is happening. We get one more outtake of Peter Sellers there where he, makes a blowy face, and that is to indicate that he is blowing Dr. Noah out of heaven and into hell. The final scene is Dr. Noah in hell. The movie is over. Jesus Christ.
And again,
superstar.
This song sounds like it's being made up on the fucking spot.
Yeah, he changed...
Casino Royale,
the lyrics,
he gets the gal, and then he does some spy things.
The lyrics are literally changed. He changes the lyrics in the last bit, so he's like, they all go to heaven except one who's going to someplace incredibly hot, or something like that, and it's just...
yeah, this movie is...
The last note that I have here, before we sort of just
wrap it up,
is the weirdest part this whole movie, for me, is that the plot of a heartbroken Bond being brought out of retirement, encountering his replacement, realizing that he has a daughter, meeting the head of a Smirch-like organization, which is actually a member of his family, a villain who is considered unattractive, creating a form of a germ warfare that can target specific individuals, while holding a woman hostage he's hoping to force to fall in love with him, and the bad guy and Bond both dying in the same explosion, is also the plot of No Time to Die.
Is it?
Almost exactly that way, yeah. If you weren't looking for spoilers for No Time to Die, that's No Time to Die. So weirdly, it is very apt that we reviewed this movie as the Daniel Craig era is wrapping up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, what the fuck?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I literally felt physically ill as the movie was wrapping up. Again, partially because
it's exhausting.
I was taking these notes, so it wasn't just that I could sit back and enjoy the chaos. I was trying to keep track of what was going on. There are definitely moments in this movie that were more fun than others, but that climax just killed me.
Yeah. It's so much. It's so much, and none of it makes fucking sense. Mm-hmm. This is a movie where if you were to describe all this on paper, I'd be like, this sounds incredible.
There are people who probably have listened to us talking about it and been like, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you guys. That's
assuming
great.
that anybody listens to this.
True. But I'm just saying that it could be that we have completely fucked up and people are going to listen to this and be like,
no,
you guys suck. This sounds great. And
no, this is not well remembered. Aside from our friend Susan, I don't know that there's a ton of fans of this movie.
No, I'm saying that people would hear us talking about it and be like, that all sounds hilarious. What the fuck are you guys complaining about?
This sounds right up your alley.
Sure, and also
it's all in the execution. It's all in the execution. It's all in the tone.
Comedy is one of the most subjective forms of entertainment out there. There are many people who find Will Ferrell funny. I don't, but
even contemporary critics did not enjoy this.
Yeah, which is again like Woody Allen didn't think this movie was good. Like he said before the movie came out that he thought the movie was going to be a massive bomb and everyone was going to lose money. And then it came out, and it was because Bond Mania was so huge, and the movie was not advertised as a comedy; it was advertised as just another Bond film. People went to see it anyway, and it actually made money despite how fucking expensive this movie was. So,
is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just going over that climax in my notes, I am so tired and stressed out right now.
Understandable.
Yeah, I guess, Susan, I'm sorry that we didn't enjoy the same movie, but I anytime anyone likes a movie, honestly,
they're allowed to like it.
Makes me happy. So I'm so glad that you love this movie. I'm so glad that Niven is your favorite Bond. I think that's great.
I think, I would love if there was a modern Bond movie with this chase, stuttering...
Yeah, no,
very
there are
gentleman
good movies.
Bond.
There are good movies in this. Yeah. Honestly, Bernard Cribbins is still alive and still hilarious. If Bernard Cribbins now was to do the same shtick as the cabbie and just do just dressed exactly like Mott, just going through the movies like, is this smash? Then that would be a great movie.
It would, or if it was just an Orson Welles magic show.
Sure, just
Now you see me. Where's that Jesse Eisenberg?
I would watch Now You See Me if Orson Welles was the star instead of any of the stars of that movie.
I would like to see Orson Welles and Woody Harrelson team up. I think that's what True Detective should have been. Just Orson Welles bloated and drunk off his ass.
God.
As the Matthew McConaughey character. You know, time is a flat circle. Because I sat on it. Sorry about that. Here's a dove.
It's a dove. The movie's made in the 60s. Woody Harrelson isn't in it. Instead, Woody Harrelson is Dean Martin. Also being drunk off his ass. But the script is exactly the same. Yeah. But they just at the end of every line, it's just like dove. Just kind of like Vision in WandaVision. Flourish.
Hey, Rust, I need you to stop being so damn weird. Okay, are we done talking about Casino Royale?
I think we're fucking done talking about Casino Royale.
Okay, next week we'll have another movie with a title of a movie you're more familiar with. Tag. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I need to piss so bad.
I get it.